Dear listener, welcome to a journey through time, where the whispers of the past weave stories that linger like a soft breeze. Picture yourself somewhere quiet, perhaps curled up with a warm drink, the glow of a lamp casting shadows, or maybe you're gazing at the stars. They are light a bridge to centuries gone by. It was a world unto itself, a labyrinth of golden roofs and shadowed courtyards where the Ming and Qing dynasties ruled for over 500 years. The first light spills over the tiled roofs, catching the gold and red of the palace walls. The air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of incense from distant altars. Somewhere, a bell chimes softly, its sound rolling across courtyards where no commoner dares tread. The city is waking, but it's a waking unlike any other. Guards in silk robes move silently, their eyes scanning for any breach of protocol. Servants shuffle through hidden corridors, heads bowed, knowing that to speak out of turn could mean exile or worse. And in the heart of it all, the Emperor of the Son of Heaven prepares to face a day governed by rituals so precise they border on the surreal. Every moment here is choreographed, every action steeped in tradition. But beneath the grandeur, there are people like you and me, with dreams, fears, and quiet hopes, all caught in the web of the Forbidden City's insane rules. From the early 15th century to the fall of the last emperor in 1912, this sprawling complex was the center of Chinese power, a place where heaven and earth were set to meet. She's 16, her dark hair pinned tightly, her hands trembling as she enters the palace for the first time. Mei Ling is a new servant, chosen from a distant village for her grace and quick mind. But as she crosses the threshold, she feels the weight of the rules pressing down. She's been told, never look the emperor in the eye, never speak unless spoken to, never step on the central path reserved for the Son of Heaven. Her heart races as she wonders how she'll survive in a place where even a whisper could be her undoing. Mei Ling's story is just one thread in the tapestry we're weaving, but it is a thread that will guide us through the labyrinth of the Forbidden City's laws. Her fears, her small acts of courage, her moments of despair, they'll show us what it meant to live under rules that demanded perfection in an imperfect world. But for those who lived within its vermilion walls, emperors, concubines, eunuchs, and guards, it was a gilded cage, bound by rules so rigid they could crush the spirit. We're not just exploring history, we're living it, feeling the chill of stone underfoot, hearing the distant clink of jade ornaments, tasting the tension in the air. The Forbidden City was a place of beauty, yes, but also of control, where every rule was a reminder of power and of fragility. As we uncover these rules, we'll meet others like Mei Ling, people who navigated this strange and perilous world. Some found ways to bend the rules, others broke under their weight, but all left their mark on this hidden city. So, dear listener, are you ready? Let's take the first step together, into a world where every door hides a secret, and every rule tells a story. Stay with me, and let's discover what lies beyond the vermilion gates. Why did these rules exist? To maintain order, to protect the Emperor's divine mandate, to keep the chaos of the outside world at bay. Yet, as we'll discover, these rules often sowed fear, divided families, and left scars that echo through time. Imagine the weight of living in a place where a single misstep could end your life, where even the air you breathed felt heavy with expectation. That's the story we're unraveling tonight. Where are you right now? Are you tucked beneath a blanket, the world hushed around you, or listening as the first rays of dawn creep through your window? Wherever you are, let's pause together, breathe deeply, and step into a world both distant and alive. Tonight we're traveling to the heart of ancient China, to a place of mystery and power, the Forbidden City. But this isn't just a tale of emperors and palaces. It's a story of rules strict, strange, and sometimes heartbreaking that shaped the lives of those who walked its crimson halls. These were rules that demanded silence, obedience, and sacrifice, rules that could mean life or death in the blink of an eye. Imagine a city where every step was measured, every word weighed, and every glance could carry a secret. That's where we're going. The Forbidden City, nestled in the heart of Beijing, was more than a palace. Let's begin by picturing the Forbidden City at dawn. As we step into this world, let's imagine a young woman Mei Ling, a fictional but all too real figure whose life will follow. Before we go further, let me invite you to settle in, to let the rhythm of this story carry you like a gentle river. As we stand at the edge of this ancient world, dear listener, let's pause for just a moment to breathe in the air of the Forbidden City, where the scent of polished wood and distant jasmine lingers. If these stories of hidden lives and whispered rules are drawing you in, I invite you to subscribe to this journey, to join us for more travels through the shadows of history. It's a small step, like lighting a lantern, to guide us through the courtyards ahead. Now, let's slip deeper into the heart of Beijing, where the vermilion walls rise like silent sentinels, guarding secrets that have waited centuries to be told. The Forbidden City wasn't just a palace. It was a universe of its own, a place where every rule was a thread in a vast tapestry of power and control. Imagine walking through its gates, your footsteps echoing on stone worn smooth by generations, knowing that one wrong move could unravel everything. That's the world we're entering, and it's a world that shaped the lives of thousands, including our young servant Mei Ling, whose trembling hands and racing heart we met just moments ago. Picture Mei Ling now, standing in a courtyard so vast it seems to swallow her. The early morning sun casts long shadows from the dragon-carved pillars, and the air hums with the quiet bustle of the palace waking. She clutches a folded cloth, her only possession from home, as she tries to memorize the rules drilled into her by the head eunuch. Never touch the emperor's belongings. Never walk on the central path. Never speak of what you see or hear. These rules aren't just guidelines, they're the difference between life and death. Mei Ling's village was poor, her family hungry, and serving in the Forbidden City was meant to be an honor, a chance to send money home. But as she watches the other servants move like ghosts, their eyes fixed on the ground, she wonders if this honor is a cage. The Forbidden City, built in the early 1500s under the Ming dynasty, was designed to awe and intimidate. Its 9,000 rooms sprawled across 180 acres, a monument to the emperor's divine mandate. But for those, like Mei Ling, it was a maze of fear, where every corner held a rule waiting to be broken. Let's step back and imagine the city in its prime, around the 1600s, during the height of the Qing dynasty. The emperor, cloaked in yellow silk, sits on the dragon throne, his every word law. Around him, a web of rituals governs every moment. The rules of the Forbidden City were rooted in a belief that order on earth mirrored order in the heavens. To break a rule was to defy the cosmos itself. Emperors were isolated, their lives dictated by ceremonies so intricate they could take hours. Concubines, chosen for beauty and lineage, lived under rules that controlled their every glance. Eunuchs, the palace's silent enforcers, enforced these laws with a zeal born of their own precarious place in the hierarchy. And servants like Mei Ling, they were the lowest, yet their obedience held the palace together. The rules were insane, not just in their strictness but in their scope. Imagine being told you could only enter certain rooms on specific days, or that laughing too loudly could be seen as rebellion. These laws shaped a world where trust was rare, and survival meant learning to navigate the unspoken dot. Mei Ling's first task is simple: carry a tray of tea to the Hall of Supreme Harmony, where the emperor will soon hold court. The tray is heavy, the porcelain cups delicate, and the rule is clear: spill nothing, or face punishment. Her heart pounds as she walks, her cloth shoes silent on the stone. She passes a guard, his face unreadable, and wonders if he's watching for her to fail. The Forbidden City's rules weren't just about control. They were about creating a hierarchy where everyone knew their place. Emperors were divine, untouchable. Nobles and officials bowed to them. Concubines and eunuchs served in the shadows. And servants, they were invisible, yet their mistakes were seen by all. Mei Ling's mother had warned her, keep your head down but keep your wits sharp. As she nears the hall, the air grows warmer, thick with the scent of burning sandalwood. She hears the low hum of voices, the rustle of silk robes. The rules say she must enter, serve, and leave without a sound. But her hands shake, and the cups rattle softly. She freezes, terrified someone heard this moment. This tiny act of carrying tea is a window into the Forbidden City's world. Every task, no matter how small, was governed by rules that demanded perfection. Why? Because the emperor's power rested on the illusion of divine order. A spilled cup, a misspoken word, a glance along these could be seen as omens, cracks in the mandate of heaven. The rules were enforced by eunuchs, men who had sacrificed everything to serve the palace. They were both powerful and powerless, trusted with secrets but never fully trusted. Their vigilance made the Forbidden City a place of constant tension, where even the innocent felt guilty. Mei Ling, standing there with her tray, doesn't know it yet, but her life is about to tangle with these larger forces. She's a small figure in a vast machine, but her story will show us how the rules shaped not just the palace, but the hearts of those within it. As we follow her, we'll uncover more of these laws, and bizarre, some cruel, all unforgettable. So, dear listener, let's keep walking through gates and shadows to see what lies ahead in this city of secrets. Imagine the Forbidden City in the year 1650, dear listener, under the reign of the Qing dynasty. When its crimson walls gleamed beneath a pale winter sun, the air is sharp, carrying the scent of charcoal fires and the faint tang of ink from the scholars' quarters. The palace sprawls across 180 acres, its 9,000 rooms, a labyrinth of power and ritual. This is no ordinary city. It's a fortress of rules, a place where every gesture, every word, is bound by laws so intricate they feel like chains. The Forbidden City, built 200 years earlier by the Ming dynasty, was designed to be the center of the universe, a reflection of heaven's order. Its golden roofs curved toward the sky, dragons carved into every beam, symbolizing the emperor's divine mandate. But for those who live here, servants, concubines, eunuchs, and guards, the rules are a constant reminder of their place. Step out of line, and the consequences are swift. A misspoken word could mean exile. A wrong step, execution. This is the world we're stepping into, a world where Mei Ling, our young servant, is learning to navigate with every careful breath. The rules of the Forbidden City were born from a deep belief in harmony. The emperor, called the Son of Heaven, was seen as the link between earth and the cosmos. His power depended on order, and order depended on rules. These weren't just practical laws. They were sacred. The central path through the palace, paved with smooth stone, was reserved for the emperor alone. To walk it as a servant was to invite death, as it symbolized stepping into the divine. Even the colors you wore were ruled by law. Yellow was the emperor's color, forbidden to all but his closest kin. Imagine Mei Ling in her plain gray robe, glancing at a concubine's yellow sash and feeling a pang of awe and fear. The rules extended to time itself. The palace gates closed at dusk, and no one, not even a noble, could enter or leave without the emperor's permission. This was a city sealed from the world, its walls a barrier between the sacred and the mundane. The rules ensured that every moment, from dawn rituals to midnight patrols, reinforced the emperor's supremacy. But these rules didn't just govern actions, they shaped emotions. Fear was a constant companion. Servants like Mei Ling were taught to move silently, their eyes fixed on the ground. To meet the emperor's gaze was forbidden, a rule rooted in respect but enforced with terror. Stories whispered among the servants told of a girl who glanced at the emperor during a procession and vanished the next day. Was it true? Mei Ling didn't know, but the story clung to her like damp cloth. The rules also controlled speech. Gossip was a crime, punishable by flogging or worse, because words could spark rebellion. Yet, in the quiet corners of the palace, where servants polished jade or swept courtyards, whispers still flowed. They spoke of the emperor's moods, of concubines vying for favor, of eunuchs who wielded power like a blade. These whispers were dangerous, but they were also a lifeline, a way to feel human in a place that demanded perfection. Let's follow Mei Ling as she moves through her first week. Her steps cautious but her mind racing. She's been assigned to the Hall of Supreme Harmony, where the emperor holds court. The hall is vast, its ceiling painted with clouds and dragons, the air thick with the scent of lacquered wood. Her job is to clean the jade ornaments that line the throne, a task that requires precision. The rule is clear: touch nothing unnecessarily, leave no mark. Her fingers tremble as she works, the jade cool against her skin. She's heard of a servant who dropped a vase and was sent to the northern frontier, never to return. The Forbidden City's rules were enforced by the eunuchs, men who had given up their manhood to serve. They were the emperor's eyes and ears, their loyalty absolute but their cruelty feared. One eunuch, Master Wei, watches Mei Ling closely, his face a mask of calm. She feels his gaze like a weight, wondering if he's testing her or simply waiting for her to fail. This is the heart of the Forbidden City's insanity, a world where beauty and fear are inseparable. The palace is a masterpiece, its courtyards framed by willows, its halls filled with treasures. But every treasure is guarded by a rule, every moment shadowed by the threat of punishment. For Mei Ling, the rules are a map she's only beginning to understand. She learns to count her steps, to lower her voice, to hide her thoughts, but beneath her obedience there's a spark of curiosity, a desire to know why these rules exist and who they truly serve. As we follow her, we'll see how the Forbidden City's laws shaped not just her life, but the lives of countless others: emperors bound by ritual, concubines trapped by ambition, eunuchs driven by survival. The rules were meant to create order, but they often sowed chaos in the human heart. So, dear listener, let's keep moving through this gilded maze, where every rule tells a story, and every story holds a truth. Asterisk: the Forbidden City hums with life, dear listener, but it's a life tightly bound, like a scroll sealed with wax. The morning mist clings to the courtyards, softening the edges of the crimson walls, and the distant clang of a bronze gong signals the start of another day. For Mei Ling, each day is a test, a delicate dance through the palace's rules. She survived her first week, her hands steadier now as she polishes jade, but the weight of the Forbidden City's laws never lifts. The greatest challenge, the one that keeps her awake at night, is the rule of silence. In this palace, words are dangerous. Servants are forbidden to speak unless addressed, and even then their answers must be brief, stripped of emotion. To gossip, to share a story, to laugh too loudly, these are crimes that could lead to a whipping or banishment. This rule of silence isn't just about control, it's about erasing the individual, making each servant a shadow in the emperor's world. Imagine living in a place where your voice, your thoughts, must be locked away. That's the conflict Mei Ling faces, a quiet war between her heart and the rules. This rule of silence was rooted in the Forbidden City's need for secrecy. The emperor's power depended on mystery, on being a figure both divine and unknowable. Every decision, from war to marriage, was discussed in hushed tones behind lacquered screens. Servants who cleaned the halls and served the tea were always listening, always present. A careless word from them could spread beyond the walls, to the markets of Beijing or the ears of a rival. So, the rule was absolute: speak only when spoken, to whenever of the palace's affairs. But this was easier said than done. The Forbidden City was a hive of human lives: concubines plotting for favor, eunuchs guarding their influence, guards watching for threats. People talked, whispered, schemed, and Mei Ling, young and curious, found the silence suffocating. Back in her village, she'd shared stories with her sisters, their laughter filling the night. Here she feels her voice slipping away like water through her fingers. One evening, as the sun dips below the palace walls, Mei Ling is sent to fetch water from a courtyard well. The air is cool, the stones slick with dew. She's alone, or so she thinks, when she hears a soft hummer melody, faint but clear, coming from behind a willow tree. It's another servant, a girl about her age, singing a tune from a distant province. The sound is beautiful, a thread of warmth in the cold palace, but it's forbidden. Singing, like speaking, breaks the rule of silence. Mei Ling freezes, torn between joining the girl and running. She steps closer, her bucket forgotten, and sees the girl's face, lit by moonlight, her eyes closed as she sways. For a moment, Mei Ling feels alive, connected to someone else's heart, but then a shadow moves a eunuch patrolling the courtyard. The singing stops, the girl vanishes into the dark, and Mei Ling's heart pounds. She grabs her bucket and hurries back, the water sloshing, her mind racing. What if the eunuch saw her? What if he thinks she was singing? This moment, this brush with rebellion, shows the true cost of the Forbidden City's rules. Silence wasn't just about keeping secrets, it was about stripping away humanity. Servants weren't supposed to have stories, emotions, or dreams. They were tools, extensions of the emperor's will. Yet they were human, and humans find ways to resist, even in small ways. That girl's song, brief as it was a defiance of the rules, a reminder that the palace couldn't control everything. Mei Ling lies awake that night, her palate hard against the stone floor, replaying the melody in her mind. She wants to hum it, to hold on to it, but fear stops her. The rule of silence is a wall, and she's not sure she's brave enough to climb it. But the seed is planted, a tiny spark of rebellion that might grow or destroy her. The Forbidden City's rules created a world of tension, where every choice carried weight. For Mei Ling, the silence is a daily struggle, a reminder of her place in this vast machine. But it's not just servants who suffer. Concubines, locked in their own gilded prisons, must watch their words, knowing a rival could twist them into treason. Eunuchs, despite their power, live in fear of saying too much or too little. Even the emperor, surrounded by advisors, must guard his thoughts, lest they weaken his divine image. The rule of silence binds them all, a chain that links the highest throne to the lowest broom. As we follow Mei Ling, we'll see how this rule shapes her, how it tests her, and how it connects to the other insane laws of the Forbidden City. The palace is a place of beauty, but it's also a place of shadows, where even a song can be a crime. Let's keep walking, dear listener, to see where this path of silence leads. The Forbidden City's courtyards are quiet now, dear listener, as twilight settles over Beijing. The sky a deep indigo streaked with gold. The air carries the scent of cedar and the faint chime of a distant bell, marking the hour when servants must retreat to their quarters. For Mei Ling, these moments of stillness are both a relief and a trap. The rule of silence, which we've seen weigh so heavily on her, is just one thread in the web of laws that govern this palace. Another rule, even more suffocating, begins to press against her, the rule of invisibility. Servants in the Forbidden City are not just meant to be silent. They're meant to be unseen. Their presence must be felt only in the polished floors, the perfectly arranged flowers, the trays of tea that appear as if by magic. To draw attention, to stand out, is to risk punishment. This rule of invisibility is a paradox. Servants are everywhere, yet they must act as if they don't exist. For Mei Ling, it's a challenge that tests her spirit, a constant reminder that she's less than a shadow in this world of emperors and dragons. The rule of invisibility was woven into the very design of the Forbidden City. The palace was built to glorify the emperor, to make him the center of every moment. Its halls, with their soaring beams and intricate tiles, were staged for his presence. Servants, though essential, were scenery. They moved through hidden corridors, narrow passages tucked behind the grand halls, so their work wouldn't disturb the palace's harmony. Mei Ling learns these paths quickly, her steps light as she carries linens or sweeps dust from a courtyard. The rule demands she avoid the emperor's gaze. The nobles notice, even the other servants chatter. If she's seen, she's failed. One morning, as she polishes a bronze incense burner in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, she hears footsteps. Deliberate, it's a noble, his robes rustling like leaves. Mei Ling ducks behind a screen, her heart hammering. The rule is clear, don't be seen. She presses herself against the wall, the wood cool against her cheek, and waits until the footsteps fade. Only then does she breathe. But invisibility is harder than it sounds. The Forbidden City is alive with eyes, eunuchs watching for mistakes, guards scanning for threats, concubines noting every detail to use in their rivalries. Mei Ling feels them all, even when she's alone. One day, she's tasked with arranging peonies in a jade vase for a concubine's chamber. The flowers are heavy, their petals soft as silk, and the scent fills the room. She works carefully, knowing the concubine, Lady Zhu, is known for her temper. The rule of invisibility means finishing before Lady Zhu returns, leaving no trace of her presence. But as Mei Ling adjusts a stem, the vase wobbles. She catches it, but a single petal falls, drifting to the floor like a crimson tear. panic seizes her. If Lady Zhu sees the petal, she'll know someone was here. Mei Ling snatches it up, her hands shaking, and flees the room. She's safe, but the fear lingers, a reminder that invisibility is a performance, and one slip could end her. This rule wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about power. By making servants invisible, the Forbidden City reinforced the Emperor's divinity. He moved through a world where everything was perfect, effortless, as if the heavens themselves arranged his life. But this illusion came at a cost. Servants like Mei Ling lived in constant tension, their bodies trained to shrink, their instincts honed to anticipate. The rule also isolated them. In her village, Mei Ling was known for her quick smile, her knack for making her sisters laugh. Here, she's learning to erase herself, to move without sound, to work without recognition. Yet, even in this world of shadows, she notices others. There's an older servant, Chen, who leaves small gifts, a persimmon, a folded paper crane for the younger ones. His kindness breaks the rule of invisibility, a quiet rebellion that Mei Ling clings to. She wonders about him, about the life he left behind, but the rules keep her from asking. The rule of invisibility shaped the Forbidden City's soul. It wasn't just servants who vanished. Concubines hid their true selves behind painted smiles. Eunuchs buried their ambitions under loyalty, and even the Emperor concealed his doubts to maintain his divine mask. Everyone was playing a role, hiding in plain sight. For Mei Ling, the rule is a daily struggle, a weight that grows heavier with each passing day. She's learning to disappear, but part of her resists, yearning to be seen, to matter. This tension, this quiet fight, is what makes the Forbidden City's rules so insane. Not just their strictness, but their ability to reshape the human spirit. As we follow Mei Ling, we'll see how she navigates this world of shadows, how she finds moments of light, and how the rules test her in ways she never imagined. The palace is a place of beauty, but it's also a place of sacrifice, where being unseen is both a skill and a curse. Let's keep moving, dear listener, through these hidden corridors, to uncover what lies beyond. The Forbidden City shimmers under a midday sun. Dear listener, its golden tiles catching the light like 1,000 tiny flames. The air is warm now, heavy with the scent of blooming lotuses from the imperial gardens. For Mei Ling, the young servant we've been following, each day in this palace is a lesson in survival, a careful step through the maze of rules that govern every breath. The rule of silence keeps her voice locked away. The rule of invisibility forces her to fade into the shadows. But today, we meet her in a moment that brings these rules into sharp focus. A moment that humanizes the cold stone of the Forbidden City. Mei Ling is no longer just a figure in this vast machine. She's a girl with a heart, a past, and a flicker of hope, caught in a world that demands she be neither seen nor heard. Let's step into her story, a single thread in the tapestry of the palace, and see how the rules shape her life. Mei Ling is 17 now. Though the months in the Forbidden City feel like years, she was chosen from her village for her steady hands and quiet demeanor, traits that promised she'd serve well. Back home, she'd helped her mother weave baskets, her fingers nimble as they twisted reeds under a wide sky. She'd laughed with her sisters, their voices rising over the rice fields. But that life is a memory, distant as the stars. Here, in the palace, her hands are still nimble, but they tremble as she arranges scrolls in the Emperor's study. The room is vast, its shelves lined with texts bound in silk, the air thick with the scent of old paper and wax. The rule of invisibility means she must finish before the Emperor arrives, her presence erased like dust swept from a floor. But as she works, a memory surfaces, her mother's voice, singing a lullaby. The sound catches in her throat, and for a moment, she forgets the rule of silence. She hums softly, the notes barely audible. Then she stops, horrified, glancing at the door. No one heard, but the fear lingers, sharp as a blade. This small act, this fleeting hum, is Mei Ling's rebellion against the rules that bind her. She's not defiant by nature. She's cautious, shaped by a life of scarcity. Her family sent her to the palace hoping she'd earn enough to ease their hunger. The silver she sends home each month is their lifeline, but it comes at a cost. Mei Ling's days are long, her nights short, spent on a thin pallet in a cramped servant's quarter. The rules dictate her every move. Wake at dawn, bow to the eunuchs, work without rest until the tasks are done. She's learned to navigate the palace's hidden corridors, to anticipate the needs of the concubines and nobles she serves. But the rules also isolate her. She shares a room with 5 other girls, yet they rarely speak, fearing the rule of silence. Their eyes meet sometimes, a silent understanding, but words are too risky. Mei Ling misses her sisters, their chatter, their warmth. The palace is cold, not just in temperature but in spirit, its beauty a mask for the loneliness beneath. One afternoon, Mei Ling is sent to the imperial kitchens, a rare change from her usual tasks. The kitchens are a world apart, alive with the clatter of pots and the rich aroma of ginger and star anise. Here, the rule of invisibility is harder to maintain. Cooks shout orders, servants bustle with trays. Mei Ling's job is to carry a dish of steamed fish to a concubine's chamber. The plate is hot, the sauce fragrant, and she moves carefully, her eyes on the ground. As she passes a courtyard, she sees a young prince, no older than 6, chasing a butterfly. His laughter is bright, a sound so rare in the palace it startles her. For a moment, she watches, forgetting the rules. The boy's joy reminds her of her younger sister who loved to chase sparrows, but then a eunuch appears, his face stern, and the boy's laughter stops. Mei Ling hurries on, her chest tight. The rules don't just bind her, they bind everyone, even a child. Mei Ling's life is a series of these moments, small glimpses of humanity crushed by the weight of the Forbidden City's laws. She's learning to survive, to move like a ghost, but each day chips away at the girl she was. Yet, there's a strength in her, a quiet resolve. She clings to memories of home, to the melody she hummed, to the hope that she see her family again. Her story is one of countless in the palace, where every servant, every concubine, every eunuch carries their own burdens. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand perfection from imperfect hearts, control from souls that yearn to be free. As we follow Mei Ling, we'll see how she faces these rules, how they test her, and how they connect to the larger story of this hidden world. The palace is a place of grandeur, but it's also a place of sacrifice, where every rule leaves a mark. Let's stay with her, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate tale. Asterisk: the Forbidden City's walls cast long shadows as evening falls. Dear listener, the air cooling with the scent of damp earth and fading jasmine, lanterns flicker to life, their soft glow dancing across the courtyards, where the day's bustle gives way to a hushed stillness. For Mei Ling, these quieter hours bring no rest, only a deeper awareness of the rules that govern her world. We've seen her struggle with silence and invisibility, her small acts of resistance flickering like sparks in the dark. Now, let's widen our view, stepping back to explore the social and cultural fabric of the Forbidden City, the beliefs and norms that made its rules not just possible but sacred. This is a world where every action, from the emperor's mourning rituals to a servant's bowed head, was shaped by a culture that saw order as divine. Mei Ling's life, and the lives of those around her, are bound by these unseen forces. As real as the stone beneath their feet, the Forbidden City was more than a palace. It was a microcosm of Confucian ideals, the philosophy that underpinned Chinese society for centuries. Confucianism taught that harmony came from hierarchy. Everyone had a role, and fulfilling it perfectly ensured the world's balance. The emperor, as the son of heaven, sat at the top, his every decision a reflection of cosmic order. Below him were nobles, scholars, concubines, eunuchs, and servants, each layer defined by strict duties. The rules of the Forbidden City were an extension of this belief, designed to keep everyone in their place. For servants like Mei Ling, this meant absolute obedience. They were taught that their service upheld the emperor's mandate, that their silence and invisibility were acts of loyalty. In the palace, this wasn't just a job, it was a spiritual duty. The air was thick with this sense of purpose, from the incense burned at altars to the chants of monks in the imperial temples, their voices rising like smoke. But this harmony came at a cost. The Forbidden City's culture was one of control, where deviation was seen as a threat to the heavens themselves. The rules were reinforced by rituals that filled every day. Each morning, the emperor performed ceremonies to honor his ancestors, his robes heavy with embroidery, his steps measured by ancient texts. These rituals weren't just tradition. They were a performance of divinity, watched by nobles and recorded by scholars. For servants, the culture demanded constant vigilance. Mei Ling learned early that every task, no matter how small, carried weight. When she arranged flowers or swept a hall, she wasn't just cleaning, she was contributing to the palace's perfection. The rule of invisibility meant her work should seem effortless, as if the palace maintained itself. This belief created a strange tension. Servants were vital, yet their individuality was erased, their lives reduced to their function. The social hierarchy was rigid, but it wasn't static. Concubines, for example, lived in a world of constant competition, their status tied to the emperor's favor. They followed their own rules, never speak ill of a rival, never appear too ambitious. At their lives were a delicate dance of influence. Eunuchs, too, navigated a complex web. They were trusted with the palace's secrets, managing everything from finances to punishments, but their power was precarious. A single misstep could see them banished. Mei Ling at the bottom saw glimpses of these dynamics. One day, while carrying linens to a concubine's chamber, she overheard two eunuchs whispering about a noble's disgrace. Their voices were low, but the fear in their words was clear. She hurried away, knowing the rule of silence meant she could never repeat what she heard. The culture of the Forbidden City rewarded loyalty but punished curiosity, creating a world where trust was rare. Mei Ling felt this culture in every moment. The palace was beautiful, its gardens lush, its halls gleaming, but it was also a place of isolation. Servants were discouraged from forming bonds, as friendships could lead to gossip. Yet, in quiet moments, Mei Ling noticed acts of defiance. The older servant, Chen, who left gifts for others, was a reminder that the culture's rules couldn't fully suppress the human spirit. These small gestures gave Mei Ling hope, a sense that she wasn't alone. The Forbidden City's culture was built on order, but it was also built on people who, like her, carried dreams and fears. The rules were insane because they demanded perfection in a world of flaws, control in a world of hearts. As we follow Mei Ling, we'll see how this culture shapes her choices, how it tests her resolve, and how it connects to the larger story of the palace's laws. The Forbidden City is a place of ritual, but it's also a place of struggle, where every rule reflects a deeper truth. Let's keep exploring, dear listener, to see what lies in the heart of this gilded world. The Forbidden City's lanterns sway gently in the night breeze. Dear listener, their light casting a golden glow across the silent courtyards. The air is cool now, tinged with the scent of pine and the distant murmur of a fountain. These quiet hours are a rare moment to breathe. Though the rules of the palace never sleep, we've seen her navigate the demands of silence and invisibility, her small rebellions flickering against the weight of the Forbidden City's laws. Now a new challenge rises, one that deepens the tension of her world. The rule of restricted movement, a law that confines where and when servants can go, becomes a suffocating force in her life. This rule isn't just about control, it's about reminding everyone in the palace that freedom is a privilege, not a right. For Mei Ling, it's a conflict that tests her patience, her courage, and her growing sense of self, pulling her deeper into the maze of the Forbidden City's insane rules. The rule of restricted movement was a cornerstone of the palace's order. The Forbidden City was divided into zones, each with its own purpose: ceremonial halls, imperial residences, administrative quarters, and servants' areas. Servants like Mei Ling were confined to specific paths and times. They used narrow, hidden corridors, often dark and cramped, to move between tasks, ensuring they never crossed the emperor's path or disrupted the nobles' activities. The central axis of the palace, a wide stone path lined with carvings, was reserved for the emperor and his entourage. To step on it, even by accident, was a crime punishable by death. A rule rooted in the belief that the emperor's presence was sacred. Mei Ling learned this early, her steps careful as she memorized the allowed routes. But the rule went further. Servants were forbidden to leave their assigned areas without permission, and after dusk, the palace gates were sealed, trapping everyone inside until dawn. This restriction created a sense of imprisonment, a reminder that the Forbidden City was a world apart. One morning, Mei Ling is sent to deliver a tray of calligraphy brushes to the scholars' quarters, a task that takes her across the palace. The air is crisp, the courtyards alive with the rustle of silk as nobles pass. She keeps to the servants' path, a narrow alley tucked behind a garden wall, the stones uneven under her feet. The rule of restricted movement means she must be quick, unnoticed, her presence a whisper. But as she nears the scholars' quarters, she hears music, a soft pipa melody floating from a pavilion. It's a rare sound, one that stirs memories of her village festivals. She pauses, just for a moment, drawn to the beauty. Then a guard's shadow falls across the path, and she hurries on, her heart racing. The rule is clear: linger, and you'll be questioned. Servants caught outside their assigned areas faced flogging or worse, their movements seen as a threat to the palace's order. Mei Ling clutches the tray, the brushes rattling, and vows to be more careful. But the rule of restricted movement wasn't just about paths. It was about control over time and space. Servants' lives were scheduled to the minute: cleaning before dawn, serving during the day, retreating at night. Mei Ling's days blur together, each one a cycle of tasks confined to specific places. She longs to explore the palace, to see the gardens she's heard about, where peonies bloom like bursts of flame. But the rule keeps her tethered, her world shrinking to the corridors and courtyards of her duties. One evening, as she sweeps a hall, she overhears two concubines discussing a festival in the outer court, a rare event where lanterns light the night. Mei Ling's heart aches to see it, to feel part of something larger. But the rule of restricted movement means she'll stay in her quarters, the festival a distant dream. This confinement fuels her frustration, a quiet anger that simmers beneath her obedience. The rule of restricted movement affected everyone in the Forbidden City. Concubines were confined to their chambers, their movements watched by eunuchs. Nobles needed permission to leave the palace, their lives bound by protocol. Even the emperor, despite his power, was restricted by rituals that dictated his every step. The rule created a world of isolation, where connection was rare and dangerous. For Mei Ling, it's a daily reminder of her place, a chain that binds her to the palace's will. Yet she notices others bending the rule: servants slipping into courtyards to share a moment, eunuchs moving freely under the guise of duty. These acts of defiance give her hope, a sense that the rules can be challenged. The Forbidden City's laws are insane because they demand a perfection that stifles the soul, control that denies freedom. As we follow Mei Ling, we'll see how this rule shapes her, how it pushes her to question, and how it weaves into the larger story of the palace's hidden world. Let's keep moving, dear listener, through these restricted paths, to uncover the next layer of this intricate tale. The Forbidden City's air is heavy with the scent of rain, dear listener, as clouds gather over Beijing, casting a soft gray veil across the palace's golden roofs. The patter of droplets on stone echoes through the courtyards where servants move quickly to cover delicate silks and close latticed windows for Mei Ling. The rain is a rare moment of change in the rigid rhythm of the palace, though the rules remain unyielding. We've watched her grapple with silence, invisibility, and restricted movement, each law tightening the knot of her existence. Now, let's meet another soul in this gilded cage, a figure whose story sheds new light on the Forbidden City's insane rules. His name is Liang, a young eunuch who serves in the emperor's inner court, and his life is a mirror to Mei Ling, by the same laws, yet shaped by a different kind of sacrifice. Through Liang, we'll see how the rules of the palace twist not just actions but identities, creating a world where survival means losing a part of yourself. Liang is 20, though his smooth face and slight frame make him seem younger. He entered the Forbidden City 3 years ago, after a choice that was no choice at all. In his village, drought had withered the fields, and his family faced starvation. Becoming a eunuch, a path offered to poor boys, promised a steady income and a chance to serve the emperor. The surgery was brutal, the recovery long, but Liang survived, driven by the hope of sending silver home. Now, he moves through the palace, with a quiet grace, his robes a muted blue, his eyes always scanning. As a eunuch, Liang is both servant and enforcer, tasked with upholding the rules that bind everyone, including himself. He oversees the emperor's wardrobe, ensuring every robe is flawless, every fold precise. The rule of invisibility applies. To him, too, he must work without drawing attention, but his role gives him power that Mei Ling lacks. He can punish a servant for a misstep, report a concubine's whisper, or grant small favors. Yet, this power is a double-edged sword, as the rules bind him just as tightly. One morning, Liang is summoned to the Hall of Mental Cultivation, where the emperor reviews petitions. The air is thick with the scent of sandalwood, the room dim. Despite the morning light, Liang's task is to arrange the emperor's ink and brushes, a job that demands perfection. The rule of silence is strict here. Even a cough could disrupt the emperor's focus. Liang moves carefully, his hand steady, but his mind is elsewhere. Last night he overheard a noble plotting to discredit a rival, a dangerous secret that could shift the palace's fragile balance. The rule of silence forbids him from speaking of it, but the knowledge weighs on him. As he sets down a brush, his sleeve catches a scroll, sending it to the floor. The sound is soft, but in the silent hall, it's deafening. A guard glances at him, and Liang's heart races. He retrieves the scroll, his face blank, but the fear lingers. The rules demand perfection, and even a eunuch with all his authority is one mistake away from disgrace. Liang's life is defined by these moments, where the rules of the Forbidden City clash with his humanity. Unlike Mei Ling, he's seen the palace's inner workings, the concubines' rivalries, the nobles' schemes, the emperor's rare moments of doubt. But like her, he's trapped. The rule of restricted movement keeps him in the inner court. His day is a cycle of tasks and patrols. He sleeps in a dormitory with other eunuchs, their pallets lined against a cold wall, their conversations clipped to avoid suspicion. The rule of invisibility means he must suppress his emotions, his past, his dreams. In his village, Liang was known for his quick wit, his love of storytelling. Here, he's a function, his identity carved away with the surgery that brought him to the palace, yet he finds small ways to resist. He slips an extra blanket to a shivering servant, shares a knowing glance with a guard. These acts, tiny as they are, defy the rules that demand he be nothing more than a shadow. Liang's story shows us the cost of the Forbidden City's rules, not just for servants but for those who enforce them. Eunuchs were vital to the palace, managing its daily life, yet they were despised, seen as less than human. The rules that gave them power also isolated them, creating a world where trust was impossible. Liang knows Mei Ling, though they've never spoken. He's seen her in the courtyards, her head bowed, her steps careful. He recognizes her fear, her resilience, because he feels it too. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they pit people against each other, demanding loyalty to a system that offers no mercy. As we follow Liang and Mei Ling, we'll see how their paths cross, how the rules test them, and how they find moments of connection in a world designed to keep them apart. The palace is a place of power, but it's also a place of loss, where every rule carves a wound. Let's stay with them, dear listener, as we uncover the next piece of this intricate puzzle. The Forbidden City's gardens are a quiet refuge. Tonight, dear listener, they're lotus ponds reflecting a crescent moon. The air soft with the scent of wet leaves and distant incense. The palace sleeps, or so it seems, though its rules never rest. We followed Mei Ling through her struggles and met Liang, the young eunuch whose life mirrors her own, both bound by the insane laws of this gilded world. Now, let's step back to analyze the deeper roots of these rules, to understand why the Forbidden City was governed by such rigid control. This isn't just a story of laws. It's a story of a society built on fear, faith, and the fragile balance of power. The rules that shaped Mei Ling and Liang's lives weren't arbitrary. They were the product of centuries of tradition, designed to protect the emperor's divine mandate and keep the palace and the intact. Let's explore the causes and impacts of these rules. weaving their stories into the larger tapestry of the Forbidden City's history. The rules of the Forbidden City were born from a blend of practicality and mysticism. At its core, the palace was a political machine, the nerve center of an empire that stretched across millions of square miles. The Ming dynasty, which built the palace in the early 1500s, and the Qing dynasty, which ruled during Mei and Liang's time, faced constant threats, rebellions, invasions, internal rivalries. The rules were a way to maintain control, ensuring that every person, from emperor to servant, played their part. The rule of silence, which stifled Mei Ling's voice, was designed to prevent leaks of sensitive information. A servant's gossip could reach a rival faction, sparking unrest. The rule of invisibility, which forced Liang to move like a shadow, kept the emperor's divine image untarnished, his world free of mundane distractions. Even the rule of restricted movement, which confined Mei Ling to narrow paths, was strategic, limiting the chance of sabotage or assassination in a palace, where loyalty was never certain. But these rules were also steeped in spiritual belief. The emperor was the son of heaven, chosen by the cosmos to rule. The Forbidden City was designed as a reflection of the heavens, its layout aligned with the stars, its colors and rituals symbolic of cosmic harmony. Breaking a rule wasn't just a crime, it was a disruption of the universe's balance. When Mei Ling hummed a tune, she risked more than punishment, she risked defending the heavens. When Liang dropped a scroll, he feared not just the god's wrath but the possibility that his mistake could be seen as an omen. The rules were enforced with brutal efficiency because they were seen as sacred. Eunuchs like Liang who patrolled the halls were trained to view their role as a holy duty, their sacrifices a testament to their loyalty. This blend of faith and fear gave the rules their power, making them unquestionable in the eyes of those who lived under them. The impact of these rules was profound, shaping not just the palace but the people within it. For servants like Mei, the rules created a life of constant tension, their individuality suppressed to serve the greater good. The rule of silence isolated them, cutting them off from the connections that make life human. The rule of invisibility erased their presence, leaving them with a sense of worthlessness. Yet, these rules also fostered resilience. Mei Ling's small acts of rebellion, her humming, her longing to see the gardens showed a spirit that refused to be fully broken. For eunuchs like Liang, the rules offered power but at a terrible cost. They were trusted with the palace's secrets, yet their sacrifices made them outcasts, their lives defined by what they'd lost. The rules created a hierarchy where everyone was watched, judged, and controlled, from the emperor, bound by endless rituals, to the concubines, whose beauty was both their strength and their cage. The broader impact was a palace that functioned like a well-oiled machine but at the expense of its humanity. The rules ensured stability, but they also bred distrust. Servants feared eunuchs, eunuchs feared nobles, and nobles feared the emperor's whims. The Forbidden City was a place of stunning beauty, its halls gleaming, its gardens a vision of paradise, but it was also a place of loneliness, where genuine connection was rare. Mei Ling and Liang, though they've never spoken, share this unspoken bond, their lives shaped by the same forces. The rules were insane because they demanded perfection in an imperfect world, control over hearts that yearned for freedom. Their legacy was a palace that stood for centuries, a symbol of power, but also a reminder of the human cost of order. As we follow Mei Ling and Liang, we'll see how they navigate this world, how the rules push them to their limits, and how they find ways to endure. The Forbidden City is a place of history, but it's also a place of heart, where every rule tells a story. Let's keep exploring, dear listener, to uncover the next chapter of this timeless tale. The Forbidden City's courtyards are dusted with frost this morning. Dear listener, the air sharp with the bite of early winter, carrying the scent of charcoal fires and polished wood. The palace wakes slowly, its golden roofs glinting under a pale sun. But for Mei Ling, each day begins with the same quiet dread. We've followed her through the rules of silence, invisibility and restricted movement, and met Liang the eunuch whose sacrifices mirror her own. Now a new conflict emerges, one that tightens the grip of the Forbidden City's laws. The rule of absolute obedience, a law that demands total submission to authority, becomes a storm in Mei Ling's life. This rule isn't just about following orders, it's about surrendering her will, her instincts, her very sense of self. For Mei Ling, it's a challenge that pushes her to the edge, a clash between duty and the faint spark of defiance that burns within her. Let's step into this moment, where the palace's beauty hides a deeper struggle, and see how the rules test her heart. The rule of absolute obedience was the backbone of the Forbidden City's hierarchy. Every person, from servant to emperor, answered to someone. For servants like Mei Ling, this meant obeying the eunuchs, the concubines, the nobles, anyone above her without question. To hesitate, to doubt, was to invite punishment. The rule was rooted in Confucian ideals, which saw obedience as a virtue, a way to maintain harmony. But in the palace it was a tool of control, ensuring that no one, no matter how small, could disrupt the emperor's divine order. Mei Ling had learned this in her first days, when a senior servant slapped her for pausing before a task. The lesson was clear. Act first, think later. Now, months into her service, she moves with practiced efficiency, her body trained to respond before her mind can question. But the rule of absolute obedience is a heavy yoke, and it's beginning to chafe. One afternoon, Mei Ling is summoned to the chambers of Lady Zhu, the concubine known for her sharp tongue. The air in the room is thick with the scent of rosewater, the silk curtains drawn against the winter chill. Lady Zhu, her face painted with delicate precision, orders Mei Ling to rearrange a display of porcelain vases. The task is simple, but the concubine's eyes are cold, searching for a mistake. Mei Ling works quickly, her hands steady, but Lady Zhu interrupts with a new command: move the vases to another room, then back again. It's a test, a whim meant to assert power. The rule of absolute obedience means Mei Ling must comply, no matter how pointless the task. She nods, her face blank, and begins the work, her arms aching as she carries the heavy vases. Lady Zhu watches, a faint smile playing on her lips. Mei Ling wants to protest, to ask why, but the rule silences her. She feels her anger rising, a heat in her chest, but she buries it, knowing disobedience could mean a whipping or worse. This moment, this pointless task, is a microcosm of the Forbidden City's insanity. The rule of absolute obedience didn't just demand action, it demanded submission of the soul. Servants were expected to erase their own judgment, to become extensions of their master's will. For Mei Ling, it's a daily struggle. She's obeyed countless orders, polishing jade, fetching water, bowing to eunuchs, but each one chips away at her sense of self. Back in her village, she'd questioned her mother's rules, argued with her sisters, laughed at their stubbornness. Here, questioning is unthinkable. The rule creates a world where fear replaces thought, where obedience becomes instinct. Yet, Mei Ling notices others bending this rule. The older servant, Chen, sometimes delays a task to help a struggling girl, a quiet act of defiance. These moments give Mei Ling hope, a reminder that the rules, though powerful, aren't absolute. The rule of absolute obedience shaped everyone in the palace. Concubines like Lady Zhu obeyed the emperor, their lives a performance of grace and submission. Though their schemes hinted at hidden rebellion, eunuchs like Liang obeyed their superiors, enforcing the rules with zeal, but their own ambitions simmered beneath the surface. Even the emperor, though divine, was bound by the expectations of his advisors and the weight of tradition. The rule created a chain of control, linking every soul in the Forbidden City. For Mei Ling, it's a test of endurance, a battle to keep her spirit alive. She obeys Lady Zhu, moving the vases as ordered, but in her mind, she hums the lullaby from her village, a silent act of resistance. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand the impossible total control over human hearts. As we follow Mei Ling, we'll see how this rule pushes her, how it shapes her choices, and how it weaves into the larger story of the palace's hidden struggles. The palace is a place of order, but it's also a place of quiet rebellion, where every rule sparks a fight. Let's stay with her, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate world. The Forbidden City's halls are alive with the soft glow of lanterns. Dear listener, as a winter evening wraps Beijing in a quiet chill, the air carries the scent of cedar smoke and the faint rustle of silk as nobles move through the corridors. For Mei Ling, these moments of dusk are a fleeting pause. Though the rules of the palace press against her like a heavy cloak, we've seen her struggle with silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience, each law shaping her life in this gilded cage. Now, let's meet another figure, one whose story deepens our understanding of the Forbidden Cities. Insane rules. Her name is Yi, a concubine in the emperor's inner court, and her life is a delicate balance of beauty and danger, bound by laws that demand perfection. Through Yi, we'll see how the rules of the palace twist ambition and love, creating a world where every choice is a gamble. Let's step into her story, a vivid thread in the palace's tapestry, and see how the rules test her heart. Yi is 22, her face a vision of grace, her dark hair adorned with jade pins that catch the lantern light. She entered the Forbidden City 4 years ago, chosen from a noble family for her beauty and poise. In her hometown, she'd dreamed of a quiet life, perhaps marrying a scholar who loved her laugh. But her family saw her beauty as a path to influence, and so she was sent to the palace, a gift to the emperor. Now, she lives in the Palace of Eternal Spring, her chambers filled with silk and porcelain, yet her life is anything but free. As a concubine, Yi is bound by rules even stricter than Mei Ling's. She must never speak unless addressed by the emperor, never show jealousy, never reveal her true feelings. Her role is to please, to embody grace, to bear a son who might secure her status. The rule of absolute obedience governs her every move, but for Yi it's a performance, a mask she wears to survive. One evening, Yi is summoned to the emperor's chambers, a rare honor that sets her heart racing. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of orchids and burning wax. She wears a robe of pale green, its embroidery shimmering as she moves. The rule of invisibility applies even to her. She must be seen, but only as the emperor desires, her true self hidden. As she kneels before him, her eyes lowered, she feels the weight of the palace's eyes. The emperor, a man in his 30s, is distant, his face unreadable. He speaks briefly, complimenting her grace, then dismisses her. The encounter lasts minutes, but it's a victory in the silent war of the concubines. Anye returns to her chambers, her hands trembling. She knows her rival, Lady Zhu, will hear of this and plot against her. The rule of silence means Anya can't defend herself, can't speak of the emperor's favor. She lies awake, the silk sheets cold against her skin, wondering if this moment will lift her or destroy her. Annie's life is a series of such moments where the rules of the Forbidden City shape her every thought. The rule of restricted movement keeps her confined to the inner court, her world a cycle of gardens and chambers. She longs to walk the outer courtyards, to feel the wind unfiltered by walls, but the rules forbid it. The rule of silence stifles her voice, forcing her to communicate through gestures and carefully chosen gifts. She's learned to read the palace's unspoken language, the flick of a fan, the tilt of a headbutt. It's a language of danger. One misstep, one wrong word, could see her demoted, exiled, or worse. Anye has seen it happen. A concubine who spoke too boldly was sent to a distant temple, her name erased from the palace records. The memory haunts Anye, a reminder that the rules are unforgiving, even for those draped in silk, yet Anya finds ways to resist. She writes poetry in secret, her brush moving across rice paper, capturing her dreams of freedom. She hides the scrolls beneath a floorboard, knowing discovery would mean punishment. These small acts keep her spirit alive, a flicker of defiance against the rules that bind her. Anye knows Mei Ling, though only from a distance. She's seen the young servant in the courtyards, her head bowed, her steps silent. Anye recognizes the same fear, the same quiet strength that she feels. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand perfection from fragile hearts, control from souls that crave connection. As we follow Anye, we'll see how she navigates this world of beauty and betrayal, how the rules test her, and how her story weaves into the larger tapestry of the palace's laws. The Forbidden City is a place of splendor, but it's also a place of sacrifice, where every rule hides a human cost. Let's stay with her, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate tale. The Forbidden City's air is crisp with the promise of spring, dear listener, as the first plum blossoms unfurl in the imperial gardens, their delicate scent mingling with the smoke of morning incense. The palace hums with quiet activity, its courtyards alive with the soft tread of servants and the rustle of silk robes. For Mei Ling, Liang and Anye, the rules of this world's silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience have shaped their lives, each law a thread in the tapestry of their struggles. Now, we reach a moment of intensity, a climax, in the story of the Forbidden City's insane rules. A grand imperial banquet, a rare event that brings the palace's hierarchy into sharp focus, becomes a stage where the rules are both enforced and tested. For Mei Ling, it's a night of fear and revelation. For Liang, a test of loyalty. For Anye, a gamble for favor. Let's step into this dazzling, dangerous night, where the rules of the Forbidden City shine like a blade, and see how they shape the hearts caught in their grip. The banquet is held in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the palace's grandest space, its ceiling painted with dragons that seem to coil in the lantern light. The air is warm, thick with the scents of roasted duck, spiced wine, and jasmine perfume. The emperor sits at the center, his yellow robes glowing, surrounded by nobles, concubines, and foreign envoys. The event is a display of power, a reminder of the emperor's divine mandate, but it's also a crucible for the palace's rules. Every detail is governed by law, where each person sits, what they wear, how they speak. For servants like Mei Ling, the rule of invisibility is paramount. She's been chosen to serve wine, a task that places her in the heart of the banquet, her every move watched. She wears a plain gray robe, her hair tightly pinned, her face lowered. The rule of silence means she can't respond, even if spoken to, and the rule of restricted movement confines her to a narrow path behind the tables. Her hands tremble as she carries a silver pitcher, the wine sloshing softly, her heart pounding, with the fear of spilling a drop. Liang, as a eunuch, has a different role. He stands near the emperor, overseeing the servants, his eyes scanning for any breach of protocol. The rule of absolute obedience binds him. He must ensure the banquet runs flawlessly, or face the emperor's wrath. But the air is thick with tension. He's heard whispers of a plot, a noble planning to embarrass a rival by exposing a concubine's indiscretion. Liang knows the rule of silence forbids him from speaking, but the knowledge gnaws at him. As he watches Mei Ling move through the hall, her steps careful, he feels a pang of recognition. She's as trapped as he is, her life a series of calculated risks. When a noble snaps at her for moving too slowly, Liang steps forward, deflecting the anger with a bow. It's a small act, a breach of the rule of invisibility, but it saves Mei Ling from punishment. Their eyes meet for a moment, a silent understanding, before Liang returns to his post, his face blank but his mind racing. Danye, seated among the concubines, is a vision in emerald silk, her every gesture practiced. The rule of absolute obedience means she must please the emperor, her smiles carefully timed, her words soft, but the banquet is a battlefield. Lady Zhu, her rival, sits nearby, her eyes sharp, An Yi knows the emperor's favor is fleeting, and the rule of silence prevents her from defending herself against whispers. When the emperor compliments her poetry, a rare honor, An Yi feels a surge of hope. But then Lady Zhu spills her wine, a deliberate act that draws attention. The rules forbid Anya from reacting, but her heart burns with frustration. She maintains her composure, her face serene, but later, in her chambers, she writes a poem of defiance, her brush trembling. The banquet with its glittering surface reveals the truth of the Forbidden City. The rules create a world where every victory is fragile, every mistake magnified. The banquet is a climax because it strips the palace's rules bare. The rule of invisibility makes Mei Ling a ghost, her labor unseen yet essential. The rule of silence traps Liang, his knowledge of burden he can't share. The rule of absolute obedience binds Anya, her ambition caged by protocol. Yet, in this moment, they each find a spark of resistance, Liang's quiet protection, Mei Ling's steady hands, Annie's hidden poetry. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand perfection in a world of human flaws, control. In a world of human hearts, the banquet ends with the emperor's departure, the hall emptying, but its echoes linger. For Mei Ling, Liang, and An Yi, this night is a turning point, a moment that sharpens their resolve. The palace is a place of grandeur, but it's also a place of struggle, where every rule tests the soul. Let's follow them, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate human story. Asterisk, the Forbidden City wakes to a gentle dawn. Dear listener, the first light spilling over its crimson walls, warming the frost-kissed stones. The air is fresh, carrying the scent of damp earth and the soft chime of a temple bell. The imperial banquet, with its glittering tension, has passed. But its echoes linger in the hearts of Mei Ling, Liang, and An Yi. The rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience tested them under the lantern light, revealing the fragile balance of the palace's world. Now, we turn to a new figure, one whose story humanizes the aftermath of that night. His name is Wei, an older guard who has served the Forbidden City for decades, and his life is a testament to the rule's enduring weight. Through Wei, we'll see how the palace's laws shaped loyalty and loss, creating a world where duty is both a shield and a chain. Let's step into his story, a quiet thread in the palace's tapestry, and see how the rules define him. Wei is 50, his face lined with years of vigilance, his gray hair tied tightly beneath his guard's cap. He came to the Forbidden City as a young man, chosen for his strength and unwavering focus. In his village, he'd been a farmer's son, his days filled with the rhythm of planting and harvest. But a local official saw his potential, and Wei was sent to the palace, a chance to honor his family. Now, he patrols the outer courtyards, his spear steady, his eyes sharp. As a guard, Wei enforces the rules that bind Mei Ling, Liang, and An Yi. He ensures servants stay on their paths, concubines remain in their quarters, and eunuchs don't overstep. The rule of absolute obedience is his creed. He answers to the head guard, who answers to the emperor. But for Wei, obedience is more than duty, it's survival. He's seen guards who questioned orders banished or executed, their names erased from the palace records. One morning, Wei is stationed at the gate of heavenly purity, where the emperor will soon pass for a ritual. The air is cool, the courtyard silent save for the crunch of gravel under his boots. The rule of invisibility applies to guards. Too, they must be present but unnoticed. Their presence a reassurance of order. Wei stands rigid, his face a mask, but his mind drifts to the banquet. He was there, watching from the shadows, his spear at his side. He saw Mei Ling's trembling hands, Liang's quick intervention, and Yi's poised grace. He knows the rules they navigate, because he lives them too. During the banquet, a noble stumbled, drunk on wine, and Wei caught him before he fell, a breach of the rule of invisibility. The noble thanked him, but the head guard later struck Wei's shoulder, a warning to stay unseen. Wei accepted the blow without protest, the rule of absolute obedience silencing his pain. But the memory stings, a reminder that even loyalty has its price. Wei's life is a cycle of such moments, where the rules of the Forbidden City shape his every action. The rule of restricted movement confines him to his posts, his days a series of patrols through courtyards and gates. He longs to visit the imperial gardens, to sit by the lotus ponds he guards, but the rules forbid it. The rule of silence keeps his thoughts locked away. He speaks only to report, his words clipped and formal. In his early years, Wei tried to befriend other guards, sharing stories of their villages, but a careless joke overheard by a eunuch cost a friend his place, and Wei learned to hold his tongue. Now, he's known for his stoicism, his silence, a shield, yet he notices the palace's quieter souls. He sees Mei Ling's careful steps, Liang's guarded eyes, An Yi's hidden tension. He doesn't know their names, but he feels their shared struggle. A bond forged by the rules that bind them all. Wei finds small ways to resist. When a young servant drops a broom, he looks away, sparing her a eunuch's wrath. When a concubine lingers too long in a courtyard, he delays his report, giving her a moment of freedom. These acts are risky, breaches of the rules he's sworn to uphold, but they keep Wei human. He carries a pebble from his village in his pocket, a secret reminder of the boy he was. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand loyalty without reward, control without compassion. Wei's story shows us the cost of this world, where duty erases individuality, yet the human spirit persists. As we follow Wei, we'll see how his life intersects with Mei Ling, Liang, and Yan Yi, how the rules test his resolve, and how his quiet strength weaves into the palace's larger tale. The Forbidden City is a place of discipline, but it's also a place of heart, where every rule hides a sacrifice. Let's stay with him, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate human story. The Forbidden City's air is crisp with the promise of spring, dear listener, as the first plum blossoms unfurl in the imperial gardens, their delicate scent mingling with the smoke of morning incense. The palace hums with quiet activity, its courtyards alive with the soft tread of servants and the rustle of silk robes. For Mei Ling, Liang, and Yi, the rules of this world, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, have shaped their lives, each law a thread in the tapestry of their struggles. Now we reach a moment of intensity, a climax, in the story of the Forbidden City's insane rules, a grand imperial banquet, a rare event that brings the palace's hierarchy into sharp focus. It becomes a stage where the rules are both enforced and tested. For Mei Ling, it's a night of fear and revelation. For Liang, a test of loyalty. For Anye, a gamble for favor. Let's step into this dazzling, dangerous night, where the rules of the Forbidden City shine like a blade, and see how they shape the hearts caught in their grip. The banquet is held in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the palace's grandest space, its ceiling painted with dragons that seem to coil in the lantern light. The air is warm, thick with the scents of roasted duck, spiced wine, and jasmine perfume. The emperor sits at the center, his yellow robes glowing, surrounded by nobles, concubines, and foreign envoys. The event is a display of power, a reminder of the emperor's divine mandate, but it's also a crucible for the palace's rules. Every detail is governed by law, where each person sits, what they wear, how they speak. For servants like Mei Ling, the rule of invisibility is paramount. She's been chosen to serve wine, a task that places her in the heart of the banquet. Her every move watched. She wears a plain gray robe, her hair tightly pinned, her face lowered. The rule of silence means she can't respond, even if spoken to, and the rule of restricted movement confines her to a narrow path behind the tables. Her hands tremble as she carries a silver pitcher, the wine sloshing softly, her heart pounding, with the fear of spilling a drop. Liang, as a eunuch, has a different role. He stands near the emperor, overseeing the servants, his eyes scanning for any breach of protocol. The rule of absolute obedience binds him. He must ensure the banquet runs flawlessly, or face the emperor's wrath. But the air is thick with tension. He's heard whispers of a plot, a noble planning to embarrass a rival by exposing a concubine's indiscretion. Liang knows the rule of silence forbids him from speaking, but the knowledge gnaws at him. As he watches Mei Ling move through the hall, her steps careful, he feels a pang of recognition. She's as trapped as he is, her life a series of calculated risks. When a noble snaps at her for moving too slowly, Liang steps forward, deflecting the anger with a bow. It's a small act, a breach of the rule of invisibility, but it saves Mei Ling from punishment. Their eyes meet for a moment, a silent understanding, before Liang returns to his post, his face blank but his mind racing. Anye, seated among the concubines, is a vision in emerald silk, her every gesture practiced. The rule of absolute obedience means she must please the emperor, her smiles carefully timed, her words soft, but the banquet is a battlefield. Lady Zhu, her rival, sits nearby, her eyes sharp. Anye knows the emperor's favor is fleeting, and the rule of silence prevents her from defending herself against whispers. When the emperor compliments her poetry, a rare honor, Anye feels a surge of hope. But then Lady Zhu spills her wine, a deliberate act that draws attention. The rules forbid Anye from reacting, but her heart burns with frustration. She maintains her composure, her face serene, but later, in her chambers, she writes a poem of defiance, her brush trembling. The banquet, with its glittering surface, reveals the truth of the Forbidden City. The rules create a world where every victory is fragile, every mistake magnified. The banquet is a climax because it strips the palace's rules bare. The rule of invisibility makes Mei Ling a ghost, her labor unseen yet essential. The rule of silence traps Liang, his knowledge a burden he can't share. The rule of absolute obedience binds Anya, her ambition caged by protocol. Yet, in this moment, they each find a spark of resistance. Liang's quiet protection, Mei Ling's steady hands, Anye's hidden poetry. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand perfection in a world of human flaws, control. In a world of human hearts, the banquet ends with the emperor's departure, the hall emptying, but its echoes linger. For Mei Ling, Liang, and Anye, this night is a turning point, a moment that sharpens their resolve. The palace is a place of grandeur, but it's also a place of struggle, where every rule tests a soul. Let's follow them, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate human story. *The Forbidden City wakes to a gentle dawn. Dear listener, the first light spilling over its crimson walls, warming the frost-kissed stones. The air is fresh, carrying the scent of damp earth and the soft chime of a temple bell. The imperial banquet, with its glittering tension, has passed, but its echoes linger in the hearts of Mei Ling Liang and Anye. The rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience tested them under the lantern light, revealing the fragile balance of the palace's world. Now, we turn to a new figure, one whose story humanizes the aftermath of that night. His name is Wei, an older guard who has served the Forbidden City for decades, and his life is a testament to the rule's enduring weight. Through Wei, we'll see how the palace's laws shape loyalty and loss, creating a world where duty is both a shield and a chain. Let's step into his story, a quiet thread in the palace's tapestry, and see how the rules define him. Wei is 50, his face lined with years of vigilance, his gray hair tied tightly beneath his guard's cap. He came to the Forbidden City as a young man, chosen for his strength and unwavering focus. In his village, he'd been a farmer's son, his days filled with the rhythm of planting and harvest. But a local official saw his potential, and Wei was sent to the palace, a chance to honor his family. Now, he patrols the outer courtyards, his spear steady, his eyes sharp. As a guard, Wei enforces the rules that bind Mei Ling, Liang, and Anye. He ensures servants stay on their paths, concubines remain in their quarters, and eunuchs don't overstep. The rule of absolute obedience is his creed. He answers to the head guard, who answers to the emperor. But for Wei, obedience is more than duty, it's survival. He's seen guards who questioned orders banished or executed, their names erased from the palace records. One morning, Wei is stationed at the gate of heavenly purity, where the emperor will soon pass for a ritual. The air is cool, the courtyard silent save for the crunch of gravel under his boots. The rule of invisibility applies to guards. Too, they must be present but unnoticed. Their presence a reassurance of order. Wei stands rigid, his face a mask, but his mind drifts to the banquet. He was there, watching from the shadows, his spear at his side. He saw Mei Ling's trembling hands, Liang's quick intervention, Anye's poised grace. He knows the rules they navigate, because he lives them too. During the banquet, a noble stumbled, drunk on wine, and Wei caught him before he fell. Breach of the rule of invisibility. The noble thanked him, but the head guard later struck Wei's shoulder, a warning to stay unseen. Wei accepted the blow without protest, the rule of absolute obedience silencing his pain. But the memory stings, a reminder that even loyalty has its price. Wei's life is a cycle of such moments, where the rules of the Forbidden City shape his every action. The rule of restricted movement confines him to his posts, his days a series of patrols through courtyards and gates. He longs to visit the imperial gardens, to sit by the lotus ponds he guards, but the rules forbid it. The rule of silence keeps his thoughts locked away. He speaks only to report, his words clipped and formal. In his early years, Wei tried to befriend other guards, sharing stories of their villages, but a careless joke overheard by a eunuch cost a friend his place, and Wei learned to hold his tongue. Now, he's known for his stoicism, his silence, a shield, yet he notices the palace's quieter souls. He sees Mei Ling's careful steps, Liang's guarded eyes, Anye's hidden tension. He doesn't know their names, but he feels their shared struggle, a bond forged by the rules that bind them all. Wei finds small ways to resist. When a young servant drops a broom, he looks away, sparing her a eunuch's wrath. When a concubine lingers too long in a courtyard, he delays his report, giving her a moment of freedom. These acts are risky, breaches of the rules he's sworn to uphold, but they keep Wei human. He carries a pebble from his village in his pocket, a secret reminder of the boy he was. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand loyalty without reward, control without compassion. Wei's story shows us the cost of this world, where duty erases individuality, yet the human spirit persists. As we follow Wei, we'll see how his life intersects with Mei Ling, Liang, and Anye, how the rules test his resolve, and how his quiet strength weaves into the palace's larger tale. The Forbidden City is a place of discipline, but it's also a place of heart, where every rule hides a sacrifice. Let's stay with him, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate, human story. The Forbidden City's air is warm with the breath of spring, dear listener, as cherry blossoms drift across the courtyards, their petals soft against the ancient stones. The palace hums with the quiet rhythm of daily life, its rules an ever-present pulse. We've followed Mei Ling, Liang, Yan, and Wei through the banquet's intensity, each facing the weight of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience. Now, we explore how they adapted, how the people of the Forbidden City found ways to endure the insane rules that governed their lives. This is a story of resilience, of small acts of defiance and quiet ingenuity that kept their spirits alive. From Mei Ling's hidden melodies to Wei's secret pebble, these adaptations revealed the human heart's refusal to be fully tamed. Let's step into this world of survival, where the rules are iron but the soul is fire, and see how they carved out moments of hope. Mei Ling's adaptation begins with memory. The rules of silence and invisibility try to erase her, but she clings to her village, to the lullabies her mother sang. In the servants' quarters, when the others sleep, she traces the notes in her mind, her fingers moving as if weaving baskets. This silent music is her rebellion, a way to keep her identity alive. One night she finds a scrap of charcoal and sketches a reed on her palette's edge, a tiny act that defies the rule of invisibility. The sketch is gone by morning, erased before the eunuch's rounds, but it's enough. She also learns to read the palace's rhythms when the eunuchs are distracted, when the courtyards are empty. These moments let her pause, breathe, and feel human. During the banquet, her steady hands were an adaptation, a skill honed by months of fear and practice. Mei Ling is finding ways to bend the rules without breaking them, a delicate dance that keeps her sane. Liang, the eunuch, adapts. Through connection, the rules isolate him, his role as enforcer setting him apart, but he finds purpose in small kindnesses. He leaves extra rice for a hungry servant, slips a blanket to a cold guard. These acts, though risky, defy the rule of absolute obedience, which demands he prioritize the emperor above all. Liang also keeps a mental map of the palace's secrets, nobles' rivalries, concubines' plots, using this knowledge to navigate his duties. During the banquet, his intervention for Mei Ling was an adaptation, a calculated risk born of empathy. In his dormitory, he listens to the other eunuchs' whispered fears, offering a nod or a shared glance. These moments of connection, fleeting as they are his way of resisting the rules that demand he be a machine. Liang's sacrifice his body, his past, makes these acts vital, a way to reclaim his humanity in a world that tries to strip it away. And Ye, the concubine, too adapts through art. The rules of silence and restricted movement cage her, but her poetry is a hidden rebellion. She writes at night, her brush dancing across rice paper, capturing dreams of rivers and open skies. These scrolls, hidden beneath her chamber's floor, defy the rule of absolute obedience, which demands she exists only for the emperor. During the banquet, her composure under Lady Zhu's provocation was an adaptation, a skill learned through years of navigating rivalries. Anye also uses the palace's own rules to her advantage. She knows the emperor values grace, so she perfects her gestures, her voice turning obedience into a weapon. In quiet moments, she hums softly, a sound too faint for the eunuchs to hear, echoing Mei Ling's own rebellion. These adaptations keep Anye's spirit alive, a reminder that the rules can't fully control her heart. Wei, the guard, adapts through duty. The rules of invisibility and absolute obedience define his life, but he finds meaning in protecting the palace's fragile order. He polishes his spear with care, patrols with precision, turning routine into ritual. Yet he also bends the rules, sparing a servant's mistake or delaying a report. These acts are his adaptation, a way to balance loyalty with compassion. During the banquet, his choice to catch the stumbling noble, though it earned him a blow, was a moment of humanity. Wei carries his village pebble, rubbing it in his pocket during long patrols, a secret link to the boy he was. These small gestures, these quiet rebellions, are how Wei endures. Proof that the rules can't erase his soul. The Forbidden City's rules were insane, demanding perfection in an imperfect world, but the people within it found ways to adapt, to survive. Mei Ling's sketches, Liang's kindness, Anye's poetry, Wei's pebbles are sparks of resilience, lighting the dark. The palace is a place of control, but it's also a place of defiance, where every adaptation tells a story of hope. As we follow these souls, we'll see how their resilience shapes their paths, how the rules test their limits, and how their stories weave into the larger tale of the Forbidden City. Let's stay with them, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate human journey. The Forbidden City's air is warm with the breath of spring. Dear listener, as cherry blossoms drift across the courtyards, their petals soft against the ancient stones, the palace hums with the quiet rhythm of daily life, its rules an ever-present pulse. We've followed Mei Ling, Liang, Yi, and Wei through the banquet's intensity, each facing the weight of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience. Now, we explore how they adapted, how the people of the Forbidden City found ways to endure the insane rules that governed their lives. This is a story of resilience, of small acts of defiance and quiet ingenuity that kept their spirits alive. From Mei Ling's hidden melodies to Wei's secret pebble, these adaptations reveal the human heart's refusal to be fully tamed. Let's step into this world of survival, where the rules are iron but the soul is fire, and see how they carved out moments of hope. Mei Ling's adaptation begins with memory. The rules of silence and invisibility try to erase her, but she clings to her village, to the lullabies her mother sang. In the servants' quarters, when the others sleep, she traces the notes in her mind, her fingers moving as if weaving baskets. This silent music is her rebellion, a way to keep her identity alive. One night she finds a scrap of charcoal and sketches a reed on her palette's edge, a tiny act that defies the rule of invisibility. The sketch is gone by morning, erased before the eunuch's rounds, but it's enough. She also learns to read the palace's rhythms when the eunuchs are distracted, when the courtyards are empty. These moments let her pause, breathe, and feel human. During the banquet, her steady hands were an adaptation, a skill honed by months of fear and practice. Mei Ling is finding ways to bend the rules without breaking them, a delicate dance that keeps her sane. Liang the eunuch adapts. Through connection, the rules isolate him, his role as enforcer setting him apart, but he finds purpose in small kindnesses. He leaves extra rice for a hungry servant, slips a blanket to a cold guard. These acts, though risky, defy the rule of absolute obedience, which demands he prioritize the emperor above all. Liang also keeps a mental map of the palace's secrets, nobles' rivalries, concubines' plots, using this knowledge to navigate his duties. During the banquet, his intervention for Mei Ling was an adaptation, a calculated risk born of empathy. In his dormitory, he listens to the other eunuchs' whispered fears, offering a nod or a shared glance. These moments of connection, fleeting as they are his way of resisting the rules that demand he be a machine. Liang's sacrifice his body, his past, makes these acts vital, a way to reclaim his humanity in a world that tries to strip it away. Ye, the concubine, that adapts through art. The rules of silence and restricted movement cage her, but her poetry is a hidden rebellion. She writes at night, her brush dancing across rice paper, capturing dreams of rivers and open skies. These scrolls, hidden beneath her chamber's floor, defy the rule of absolute obedience, which demands she exist only for the emperor. During the banquet, her composure under Lady Xiu's provocation was an adaptation, a skill learned through years of navigating rivalries. Ni also uses the palace's own rules to her advantage. She knows the emperor values grace, so she perfects her gestures, her voice, turning obedience into a weapon. In quiet moments, she hums softly, a sound too faint for the eunuchs to hear, echoing Mei Ling's own rebellion. These adaptations keep Anya's spirit alive, a reminder that the rules can't fully control her heart. Wei, the god, adapts through duty. The rules of invisibility and absolute obedience define his life, but he finds meaning in protecting the palace's fragile order. He polishes his spear with care, patrols with precision, turning routine into ritual. Yet he also bends the rules, sparing a servant's mistake or delaying a report. These acts are his adaptation, a way to balance loyalty with compassion. During the banquet, his choice to catch the stumbling noble, though it earned him a blow, was a moment of humanity. Wade carries his village pebble, rubbing it in his pocket during long patrols, a secret link to the boy he was. These small gestures, these quiet rebellions, are how Wei endures, proof that the rules can't erase his soul. The Forbidden City's rules were insane, demanding perfection in an imperfect world, but the people within it found ways to adapt, to survive. Mei Ling's sketches, Liang's kindness, Ani's poetry, Wei's pebble, these are sparks of resilience, lighting the dark. The palace is a place of control, but it's also a place of defiance, where every adaptation tells a story of hope. As we follow these souls, we'll see how their resilience shapes their paths, how the rules test their limits, and how their stories weave into the larger tale of the Forbidden City. Let's stay with them, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this intricate human journey. The Forbidden City's air is soft with the warmth of late spring, dear listener. As the scent of peonies drifts through the courtyards, mingling with the faint smoke of morning rituals, the palace moves with its usual precision, its rules an invisible hand guiding every step. We've followed Mei Ling, Liang, Anye, and Wei through the banquet's crucible and seen their resilience, their quiet adaptations to the insane laws of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience. Now, we explore how these rules connect to our world, how the struggles of the Forbidden City echo in the challenges we face today. This is a story of human endurance, of the ways we navigate control and find meaning in restriction. From hidden melodies to Wei's steadfast duty, their lives remind us that the past is never truly distant. Let's step into this reflection, where the palace's walls fade and its lessons come alive, linking their time to ours. Mei Ling's struggle with silence resonates in our modern world, where voices are often stifled by expectation, fear, or systems that demand conformity. Like her, we find ourselves in places where speaking out feels risky, whether in workplaces, communities, or online spaces. Her quiet humming, her charcoal sketches, were acts of defiance, small ways to reclaim her voice. Today, we see this in the artist who writes in secret, the worker who shares a truth despite fear, the student who questions a rigid rule. Mei Ling's adaptation teaches us that even in silence, we can find ways to express ourselves, to hold on to who we are. The rule of silence in the Forbidden City was meant to erase individuality. But Mei Ling's resilience shows us that the human spirit persists, a lesson we carry when we face our own moments of being unheard. Liang's life, marked by sacrifice and quiet kindness, mirrors the compromises we make to survive in structured systems. As a eunuch, he gave up his body and passed to serve, yet his small act saving Mei Ling from a noble's wrath. Sharing a blanket defied the rules that bound him. Today, we see this in those who work within rigid institutions, bending rules to help others. The nurse who stays late for a patient, the teacher who listens beyond the curriculum, the colleague who covers a shift. Liang's story reminds us that power, even limited, can be used for good, that sacrifice doesn't have to mean losing compassion. The rules of the Forbidden City tried to make him a machine, but his humanity shone through, a light for us when we navigate our own compromises. Annie's poetry, written in defiance of the rules, speaks to the ways we seek freedom in constrained lives. As a concubine, her world was a cage of silk and protocol, yet her hidden scrolls captured dreams of open skies. We see this today in those who create despite limits, the writer crafting stories in stolen moments, the activist speaking through art, the dreamer planning beyond their circumstances. Annie's careful navigation of the banquet, her composure under pressure, reflects the balance we strike in competitive spaces where we must perform while protecting our true selves. Her story shows us that creativity is a form of resistance, a way to transcend the rules that seek to define us, a lesson that echoes in our own pursuits of expression and identity. Wei's steadfast duty, tempered by quiet compassion, connects with two of the roles we play in upholding order while seeking meaning. As a god, he enforced the rules, yet his small acts, sparing a servant, carrying a pebble, kept his humanity alive. Today, we see this in those who serve within systems, balancing duty with empathy, the officer who listens, the manager who bends policy for fairness, the volunteer who stays true to their values. Wei's life reminds us that even in rigid roles, we can find space for kindness, that duty doesn't have to erase the heart. The rules of the Forbidden City demanded his loyalty, but his choices showed that loyalty can include humanity, a truth we carry in our own responsibilities. The Forbidden City's rules were insane because they sought to control the uncontrollable, the human spirit. Yet Mei Ling, Liang, and Ye and Wei found ways to adapt, to resist, to endure. Their stories connect to ours because they speak to universal truths, the need to be seen, to be heard, to be free. The palace, with its crimson walls and golden roofs, was a world of beauty and control, but it was also a world of resilience, where every rule sparked a quiet fight. Today, when we face our own rules, social pressures, workplace demands, personal sacrifices, we can draw on their strength, their small victories. The Forbidden City is gone, its emperors faded, but its lessons live on, whispering of the power within us all. Let's carry these stories, dear listener, as we uncover the next chapter of this timeless, human journey. The Forbidden City's courtyards glow under a summer moon. Dear listener, the air warm with the scent of lotus blooms and the soft hum of cicadas. The palace moves with its eternal rhythm, its rules an unseen current guiding every step. We've followed Mei Ling, Liang, and Ye and Wei through the banquet's intensity, their resilience shining against the laws of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience. If these stories of hidden struggles and quiet defiance are wrapping around your heart, subscribe if you like the video, and join us for more journeys through the shadows of history. It's like adding a lantern to our path, lighting the way forward. Now, let's return to the Forbidden City, where a new challenge emerges, one that tests the bonds between our characters. A whispered rumor, a breach of the rules, ripples through the palace, threatening to unravel the fragile order. For Mei Ling, it's a moment of fear. For Liang, a test of trust. For Anye, a spark of opportunity. For Wei, a shadow of doubt. Let's step into this delicate, dangerous moment, where the rules tighten their grip. The rumor begins in the servants' quarters, a hushed word passed in the dark. A concubine, it said, has defied the rule of silence, speaking ill of the emperor's latest decree. The news spreads like wildfire, from servant to eunuch, courtyard to chamber. In the Forbidden City, such a breach is no small thing. The rules are sacred, and to question the emperor is to question the heavens. Mei Ling hears the rumor while fetching water, the words slipping from a careless cook. Her heart races. She knows the penalty for gossip, the rule of silence she struggled to obey. She thinks of the girl who sang by the well, the melody that nearly cost them both. Now, she keeps her head down, her bucket heavy, but the rumor clings to her. She's seen the concubines, their painted faces hiding sharp ambitions, and wonders who dared speak. The rule of invisibility means she must stay out of it, but the palace is a web, and every thread connects. Liang, in the emperor's inner court, feels the rumor's weight differently. As a eunuch, he's tasked with rooting out such breaches. The rule of absolute obedience demands he report any whisper, but this rumor is vague, its source unclear. He's in the hall of mental cultivation, arranging the emperor's scrolls, the air thick with ink and wax. A senior eunuch questions him, his voice sharp, asking if he's heard anything. Liang's face is blank, but his mind churns. He knows the concubine in question might be Yi, whose poetry he's glimpsed in passing, its words bold and unguarded. Reporting her would uphold the rules, but it would also destroy her, and Liang feels a flicker of loyalty to the shared struggle he senses in her and Mei Ling. In Wei, he says nothing, a small defiance of the rule of silence, but the choice leaves him uneasy, his hands trembling as he sets down a brush. Yi, in her chambers, senses the rumor's danger and its potential. The rule of silence has always chafed, her poetry a secret rebellion against it. She's heard the whisper to passed by a maid who serves her rival, Lady Zhu, and Yi suspects Lady Zhu started the rumor, a calculated move to discredit her after the banquet's success. The rule of absolute obedience means Anye must remain loyal, but the palace is a game of shadows. She writes a new poem, its words veiled but praising the emperor, and slips it to a trusted servant to reach his eyes. It's a risk, a breach of the rule of restricted movement, but it's also a play for favor. Anya's heart pounds as she waits, the silk curtains of her chamber swaying in the breeze. The rumor could ruin her, but it could also lift her, if she navigates the rules with care. Wei, patrolling the outer gates, feels the rumor like a storm on the horizon. As a guard, he's sworn to uphold the rules, but years of service have taught him their cost. He's seen servants flogged for less, concubines exiled on flimsy evidence. The rule of absolute obedience binds him, but his pebble, tucked in his pocket, reminds him of his humanity. At the gate of heavenly purity, he overhears two nobles discussing the rumor, their voices low. Wei could report them earning favor, but he hesitates. He thinks of Mei Ling's careful steps, Liang's guarded eyes, Anyi's poised grace. They're all caught in the same web, and Wei's loyalty is torn. He keeps silent, his spear steady, but the rumor gnaws at him. A reminder that the rules create distrust, even among those who enforce them. The rumor, though small, reveals the insanity of the Forbidden City's rules. It shows how silence breeds suspicion, how obedience stifles truth, how restricted movement traps everyone in their roles. Mei Ling, Liang, and Ye and Wei are linked by this moment. Their choice is a delicate dance around the laws that bind them. The palace is a place of beauty, its gardens blooming, its halls gleaming. But it's also a place of fear, where a whisper can change everything. As we follow our characters, we'll see how this rumor shapes their paths, how the rules test their bonds, and how their stories weave into the larger tale of the Forbidden City. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this intricate human journey. The Forbidden City's air hums with the warmth of summer. Dear listener, as the sun bathes the crimson walls in golden light, the scent of ripe persimmons drifting from the imperial orchards, the palace moves with its quiet precision, but the rumor of a concubine's defiance lingers, a shadow over the courtyards. Mei Ling, Liang, and Ye and Wei feel its weight, each navigating the rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, and absolute obedience in their own way. Now, a new conflict emerges, one that tightens the palace's grip. The rule of ritual purity, a law demanding flawless adherence to ceremonial cleanliness, becomes a crucible for our characters. For Mei Ling, it's a test of endurance. For Liang, a clash of duty. For Nye, a mask for ambition. For Wei, a burden of memory. Let's step into this intricate moment, where the rules of the Forbidden City demand perfection, and see how they shape the hearts caught in their web. The rule of ritual purity was central to the palace's spiritual life. The Forbidden City was a reflection of the heavens, and any impurity, physical or moral, could disrupt the emperor's divine mandate. Servants, concubines, eunuchs, and guards were required to maintain strict cleanliness, from washing their hands in rose water to wearing spotless robes. For ceremonies, the rules were even stricter. No food could touch the lips before a ritual, no stain could mar the silk, no hair could fall out of place. Breaking this rule was seen as a sin, punishable by flogging or exile, as it risked angering the heavens. Mei Ling faces this rule daily, her tasks often tied to preparing for rituals. One morning, she's sent to scrub the stone steps of the altar of heaven, where the emperor will pray for a bountiful harvest. The air is heavy with dew, the stones cold under her hands. The rule of ritual purity means every speck of dust must vanish, her work flawless. Her fingers ache, her knees raw, but she works on, knowing a single missed spot could bring punishment. Liang, as a eunuch, oversees the ritual items: jade cups, silk banners, bronze censers, ensuring they're pristine. The rule of ritual purity is his responsibility, but it's a source of tension. In the Hall of Supreme Harmony, preparing for a lunar festival, he notices a smudge on a censer. The rule demands he report the servant responsible, but he recognizes Mei Ling's careful hands in the nearby tasks. Reporting her would uphold the rule of absolute obedience, but it would also betray the silent bond he feels. He polishes the censer himself, his movements quick, but a senior eunuch notices, his eyes narrowing. Liang's heart races. He's breached the rule of invisibility by acting out of turn. The rule of ritual purity, meant to ensure divine favor, creates a world where even kindness is a risk. Liang finishes his work, the censer gleaming, but the encounter leaves him shaken. His loyalty torn between the rules and his heart. And Ni, in her chambers, uses the rule of ritual purity to her advantage. The rumor of defiance has weakened her rival, Lady Zhu, and Anya sees a chance to rise. For the lunar festival, she's chosen to present a ritual offering, a role that demands perfect cleanliness. She bathes in jasmine water, her robes pressed with care, her hair adorned with silver. The rule of ritual purity is a performance, and Anyi is a master. She moves through the ceremony with grace, her offering a jade lotus drawing the emperor's nod. But the rule of silence means she can't speak of her triumph, and the rule of restricted movement keeps her from the courtyards where nobles gossip. Anyi writes a poem that night, its words veiled but bold, a secret defiance of the rules that bind her. The rule of ritual purity elevates her, but it also isolates her, a reminder that every victory in the Forbidden City is fragile. Wei, guarding the altar during the ritual, feels the rule's weight like a stone. His robes must be spotless, his spear polished, his stance unwavering. The rule of ritual purity is a duty he's performed for decades, but it stirs memories of his village, where purity meant a clear stream, not a palace's rigid laws. He sees Mei Ling scrubbing the steps, her face strained, and recalls a young guard who was flogged for a stained sleeve. The rule of absolute obedience demands Wei report any flaw, but he looks away, his pebble warm in his pocket. The rule of ritual purity, meant to honor the heavens, creates a world of fear, where perfection is demanded of imperfect souls. Wei's silence is his adaptation, a quiet rebellion against the rules he's sworn to uphold. The rule of ritual purity reveals the insanity of the Forbidden City's laws, demanding divine perfection from human hands. Mei Ling's aching fingers, Liang's risky kindness, Anyi's calculated grace, Wei's silent compassion, these are the human costs of a system that sees flaws as sins. The palace is a place of beauty, its rituals a dance of light and silk, but it's also a place of pressure, where every rule tests the spirit. As we follow our characters, we'll see how this rule shapes their choices, how it weaves into the rumor's fallout, and how their stories unfold in this intricate world. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this timeless tale. Asterisk, the Forbidden City's halls shimmer with the glow of autumn lanterns. Dear listener, as the air carries the crisp scent of fallen leaves and burning cedar, the palace moves through. Its rituals, the rule of ritual purity still fresh in the minds of Mei Ling, Liang and Wei. The rumor of defiance lingers, a quiet storm beneath the surface. But now a new figure steps into our story, one whose life deepens the weight of the Forbidden City's rules. Her name is Shu Fen, a senior servant who has served for 30 years, and her weathered hands and sharp eyes hold the secrets of the palace. Through Shu Fen we see how the rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, and ritual purity shape a lifetime, creating a world where survival means mastering the art of endurance. Let's follow her story, a steady thread in the palace's tapestry, and see how the rules have carved her path. Shu Fen is 55, her face etched with lines that tell of decades in the Forbidden City. She came to the palace as a girl, not unlike Mei Ling, her family desperate for the silver her service would bring. In her village, she'd been known for her quick wit, her knack for calming disputes. Now, she's the head of the servants' quarters, overseeing girls like Mei Ling with a mix of sternness and hidden care. Her role demands she enforce the rules, ensuring every servant is silent, invisible, and obedient. But Shu Fen knows the cost. She's seen girls break under the pressure, their spirits crushed by the palace's demands. Her own life is a testament to adaptation. She moves with precision, her gray robe spotless, her voice low but firm. The rule of ritual purity is her domain. She inspects the servants' hands, their robes, their work, ensuring no flaw disrupts the palace's harmony. Yet her heart carries scars, memories of a life the rules have stolen. One evening Shu is summoned to the Palace of Eternal Spring, where Anyi resides. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of jasmine and polished wood. Anyi has requested extra lanterns for a poetry reading, a subtle bid for the emperor's favor. Shu Fen assigns Mei Ling to the task, watching as the young girl carries the lanterns with trembling hands. The rule of invisibility means Mei Ling must work unnoticed, but Shu Fen sees her fear, her careful steps. She remembers her own early years, when a dropped tray earned her a lashing. The rule of absolute obedience demands Shu Fen report any mistake, but she hesitates, her eyes softening. Instead, she adjusts a lantern herself, a small breach of the rule of restricted movement, sparing Mei Ling's error. The act is quick, unnoticed by the eunuchs, but it's a risk. Shu Fen knows that the palace's eyes are everywhere, and even her authority offers little protection. Shu Fen's life is filled with such moments where the rules clash with her humanity. The rule of silence has taught her to guard her words, but in the servants' quarters, she shares quiet stories with the girls, tales of her village to ease their homesickness. These whispers defy the rules, but they keep the girls' spirits alive. The rule of restricted movement confines her to the inner palace, but Shu Fen has mapped its hidden paths, using them to check on her charges. During the Lunar Festival, she saw Mei Ling scrubbing the altar steps, her hands raw, and slipped her a cloth to ease the pain. A secret act of care. The rule of ritual purity, which she enforces with rigor, is also her burden. She's flogged girls for stained robes, her heart breaking each time. Shu Fen's adaptations are subtle, a nod to Liang when he spares a servant, a glance away when he looks away from a minor fault. These connections, fragile as they are, defy the rules that isolate them. Shufen knows the rumor of defiance. Having heard it from a cook she trusts, she suspects Anyi's poetry, its bold words, a spark that could ignite trouble. The rule of absolute obedience means she should report it. But Shufen sees Anyi's struggle, her fight to rise in a world that cages her. She's seen Liang's quiet kindness, Wei's steadfast duty, Mei Ling's flickering defiance. Shufen's role makes her a bridge between them, her authority a shield she uses sparingly. One night, she finds Mei Ling sketching a reed on her palette, a breach of the rule of invisibility. Instead of reporting her, Shufen erases it herself, her fingers gentle, and whispers a warning. The act binds them, a silent pact in a world of control. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane because they demand perfection from weary souls, obedience from hearts that yearn. Shufen's story shows us the cost of endurance, the strength it takes to survive. As we follow her, we'll see how her life weaves with the others, how the rules test her wisdom, and how her presence shapes the palace's tale. Let's stay with her, dear listener, through this intricate journey. The Forbidden City's air is cool with the edge of autumn. Dear listener, as the scent of chrysanthemums and burning incense weaves through the courtyards, the palace moves with its relentless order. The rumor of defiance now a faint echo, though its ripples still touch Mei Ling, Liang, and Ye Wei, and Shufen. The rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, and ritual purity have tested them, each finding ways to endure. Now, a new conflict rises, one that sharpens the palace's tension. The rule of loyalty, a law demanding unwavering allegiance to the emperor above all, becomes a storm that threatens to divide our characters. For Mei Ling, it's a question of survival. For Liang, a clash of conscience. For Anye, a path to power. For Wei, a test of faith. For Shufen, a weight of responsibility. Let's step into this fraught moment, where the rules of the Forbidden City demand the heart's surrender, and see how they navigate this perilous tide. The rule of loyalty was the cornerstone of the Forbidden City's existence. The emperor, as the son of heaven, demanded absolute devotion, a bond that superseded family, friendship, or self. To show loyalty to another, to a friend, a rival, or even a memory, was to risk accusations of treason. This rule was enforced with brutal clarity. A servant who favored a concubine could be flogged. A eunuch who hid a noble's plot could be executed. The palace's history was littered with stories of betrayal, of those who faltered and paid the price. Mei Ling feels this rule acutely. She's loyal to her family, sending silver home, but the palace demands her heart belong to the emperor. One morning, she's tasked with cleaning the emperor's private study, a room of lacquered wood and silk scrolls. The air is heavy with the scent of ink, the silence oppressive. As she dusts a jade statue, she overhears two nobles discussing a rebellion in the south. The rule of loyalty means she must report it. But fear stops her. Speaking could draw attention, breaking the rule of invisibility. She works on, her hands shaking, the secret of burden she carries alone. Liang, in the emperor's inner court, faces the rule of loyalty with growing unease. As a eunuch, his life is dedicated to the emperor, but the rumor of defiance has stirred doubts. He knows Anyi's poetry, its words a quiet challenge to the palace's order. The rule of loyalty demands he report her, but Liang feels a kinship with her struggle, with Mei Ling's fear, with Wei's quiet compassion. One evening, in the hall of mental cultivation, he's questioned by a senior eunuch about the rumor. The air is thick with tension, the lanterns casting long shadows. Liang denies knowing anything, a lie that breaks the rule of absolute obedience and risks his life. His loyalty is torn between the emperor and the unspoken bond he shares with those who suffer under the rules. He leaves the hall, his steps steady but his heart racing, knowing one wrong move could end him. Anye sees the rule of loyalty as a tool. The rumor has weakened her rival, Lady Zhu, and Anye uses it to strengthen her place. She crafts a public gesture, a silk banner embroidered with the emperor's crest, presented during a ritual. The act, flawless under the rule of ritual purity, earns her praise, but it's a calculated move, defying the rule of silence by speaking through action. In her chambers, she writes a poem praising the emperor, ensuring it reaches his advisors. The rule of loyalty is her shield, but it's also a cage she must suppress. Her dreams of freedom, her longing for a life beyond the palace. Anyi's ambition drives her, but the rule demands she hide her true self, a tension that keeps her awake, the silk sheets cold against her skin. Wei, guarding the palace gates, feels the rule of loyalty like a chain. His decades of service have been a testament to it, but the rumor stirs memories of a friend, a guard who was executed for hiding a noble's letter. Wei's pebble warm in his pocket reminds him of his village, a loyalty the palace can't erase. During a patrol, he sees Mei Ling hurrying with a tray, her face pale. He knows she's heard something, her fear mirroring his own. The rule of loyalty demands he question her, but Wei looks away, his silence a small rebellion. Shufen, overseeing the servants, faces the rule's weight as a leader. She knows the rumor, suspects Annie's role, but her loyalty is divided between the emperor and the girls she protects. When a eunuch questions her about Mei Ling's work, Shufen vouches for her, a lie that risks her own standing. The rule of loyalty reveals the insanity of the Forbidden City's laws, demanding allegiance over humanity, control over conscience. Mei Ling's secret, Liang's lie, Anyi's ambition, Wei's silence, Shufan's protection. These are the human costs of a system that sees loyalty as a weapon. The palace is a place of grandeur, its autumn gardens blooming, but it's also a place of division, where every rule tests the heart. As we follow our characters, we'll see how this rule shapes their bonds, how it weaves into the palace's intricate tale, and how their choices unfold. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this timeless journey. The Forbidden City's air is sharp with the chill of early winter, dear listener. As the scent of pine and charcoal fires drifts through the courtyards, the crimson walls dusted with frost, the palace moves with its unyielding rhythm. The rule of loyalty now, a heavy shadow over Mei Ling, Liang, Anye, Wei, and Shufan. The rumor of defiance has stirred tensions, and the rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, and loyalty bind them tighter than ever. Now a new moment arises, a historical climax that shakes the palace's foundations. An imperial edict, issued by the emperor to purge disloyalty, sweeps through the Forbidden City, demanding every soul prove their allegiance. For Mei Ling, it's a moment of terror. For Liang, a breaking point. For Anyi, a dangerous opportunity. For Wei, a test of resolve. For Shufan, a call to protect. Let's step into this pivotal night, where the rules of the Forbidden City burn like a flame, and see how our characters face this storm. The edict comes at dusk, announced by the toll of a bronze gong that echoes across the palace. The emperor, shaken by reports of rebellion in the provinces, declares that all within the Forbidden City must renew their oaths of loyalty. Servants, eunuchs, concubines, and guards are to present themselves in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, their actions scrutinized, their pasts examined. The rule of loyalty, always absolute, now demands public proof. Any hint of disloyalty, any breach of the rules, could mean exile or death. The air is thick with fear, the lanterns casting jagged shadows as the palace prepares. Mei Ling, in the servants' quarters, feels her heart pound. She's heard the nobles talk of rebellion, a secret she's kept under the rule of silence. The rule of invisibility has kept her safe, but now she must stand before the emperor's court, her presence exposed. She clutches her charcoal sketch, hidden beneath her robe, a symbol of her defiance, and wonders if it will betray her. Liang, in the emperor's inner court, feels the edict like a noose. As a eunuch, he's sworn to uphold the rules, but his silence about Anyi's poetry, his kindness to Mei Ling are cracks in his loyalty. The rule of absolute obedience demands he confess any doubts, but doing so would implicate others. In the hall of mental cultivation, he prepares the emperor's seals, the air heavy with wax and dread. A senior eunuch, sensing his unease, presses him for information. Liang's lie deny knowledge of the rumor holds, but his hands shake as he works. The rule of ritual purity, which he's upheld in every ceremony, feels hollow now, a mask for a system that punishes truth. Liang thinks of Mei Ling's fear, Wei's quiet strength, Shufan's care, and feels a loyalty to them, a bond the rules can't break. He steps into the hall, his robe pristine, his face blank, but his heart is a storm. Anyi, in her chambers, sees the edict as a double-edged sword. The rule of loyalty is her path to favor, but her poetry, hidden beneath the floor, is a secret. Defiance. She prepares for the ceremony with care, her crimson robe flawless, her hair adorned with jade. The rule of ritual purity, her armor. The banquet's success and her recent offerings have raised her status. But ladies' use whispers linger, accusing her of disloyalty. Anye decides to act. She presents a new poem, publicly read during the oath, praising the emperor's wisdom. The rule of silence bends as her words echo, a calculated risk that draws the emperor's smile. But the rule of restricted movement keeps her from the courtyards where eunuchs plot, and she knows her triumph is fragile. Anyi's ambition burns, but the edict's scrutiny frightens her. The palace's eyes sharper than ever. Wei, at the gate of heavenly purity, feels the edict's weight like a stone. His decades of service prove his loyalty, but the rule of absolute obedience demands he report any suspicion, including Mei Ling's pale face or Liang's guarded eyes. The rule of invisibility has kept him unnoticed, but now he must stand before the court, his loyalty tested. He rubs his pebble, its smoothness a link to his village, and thinks of a guard who died for hiding a friend's fault. During the ceremony, Wei stands rigid, his spear gleaming, but his heart wavers. Shufan, overseeing the servants, faces the edict with grim resolve. She knows Mei Ling's secret sketch, Anyi's poetry, Liang's kindness, and Wei's compassion. The rule of loyalty demands she expose them, but her heart lies with her charges. She guides Mei Ling through the oath, her voice steady, a silent vow to protect. The edict is a climax, stripping the rules bare. Mei Ling's fear, Liang's lie, Anyi's gamble, Wei's silence, Shufan's care. These are the human costs of a system that demands loyalty above all. The Forbidden City is a place of grandeur, its halls aglow, but it's also a place of terror, where every rule burns the soul. As we follow our characters, we'll see how this edict shapes their fates, how the rules test their bonds, and how their stories unfold in this intricate world. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this timeless tale. Asterisk, the Forbidden City's air is heavy with winter's chill. Dear listener, as the scent of burning sandalwood and frost-kissed stone fills the courtyards, the imperial edict, demanding proof of loyalty, has passed, but its echoes reverberate through the palace, tightening the grip of the rules on Mei Ling, Liang, Yanye Wei, and Shufin. The ceremony in the Hall of Supreme Harmony was a crucible, each character tested by the laws of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, and loyalty. Now, we meet a new figure, one whose story humanizes the edict's aftermath. His name is Jian, a young scholar in the emperor's court, and his life is a delicate balance of knowledge and fear, bound by the same rules that shape the others. Through Jian we see how the Forbidden City's laws twist ambition and truth, creating a world where intellect is both a gift and a curse. Let's step into his story, a bright thread in the palace's tapestry, and see how the rules define him. Jian is 25, his face sharp with thought, his dark eyes always scanning the scrolls he studies. He came to the Forbidden City after passing the imperial exams, a rare honor for a farmer's son. In his village, he'd read by candlelight, dreaming of serving the emperor. Now, he works in the Hall of Literary Glory, drafting edicts and recording the emperor's decrees. His role demands precision. The rule of ritual purity ensures every scroll is flawless, every brushstroke perfect. The rule of silence binds his tongue. He speaks only when addressed, his words measured to avoid offense. The rule of loyalty is his creed, his scholarship a testament to the emperor's wisdom. But the edict has shaken him. During the ceremony, he stood among the scholars, his robe pressed, his oath clear, but he overheard a whispered doubt from a colleague, a breach of loyalty. The rule of absolute obedience demands he report it. But Jian hesitates, his heart torn between duty and friendship. One morning Jian is tasked with drafting a new edict, a response to the Southern Rebellion. The air in the hall is thick with the scent of ink and old paper, the silence broken only by the scratch of brushes. The rule of invisibility means his work must shine without drawing attention to himself. As he writes, he recalls the rumor of defiance, its source still unclear. He suspects Anyi's poetry, having glimpsed her bold words during a ritual. The rule of loyalty demands he expose her, but Jian admires her courage, a spark he feels in himself. He thinks of mailing her quiet steps in the courtyards, and Liang, whose kindness he's noticed. The edict he writes is careful, praising the emperor's strength. But Jian slips in a subtle plea for mercy, a breach of the rule of absolute obedience. His hands tremble as he seals the scroll, knowing a single misstep could end his career. Jian's life is a series of such risks, where the rules of the Forbidden City clash with his ideals. The rule of restricted movement confines him to the scholar's quarters. His days a cycle of study and drafting. He longs to walk the imperial gardens, to clear his mind, but the rules forbid it. The rule of silence stifles his thoughts, though his mind burns with questions about the empire's future. In his dormitory he writes essays in secret, hiding them beneath his bed, a defiance of the rules that demand he think only for the emperor. Jian has seen Wei's steadfast patrols, Shufin's quiet care, and feels a kinship with their struggles. During the edict ceremony, he noticed Mei Ling's pale face, Liang's guarded eyes, and Anyi's poised gamble. Their shared fear, their quiet defiance, mirror his own. A bond forged by the palace's relentless laws. Jian finds small ways to resist. He shares a scroll with a struggling scholar, risking the rule of loyalty. He nods to Wei during a patrol, a silent acknowledgement that defies the rule of invisibility. These acts keep Jian's spirit alive, a reminder that the rules can't fully control him. The rule of loyalty, which demanded his oath, also exposed the palace's fragility. Doubt, even among scholars, shows the human heart's resistance. Jian's story reveals the insanity of the Forbidden City's laws, which demand truth serve power, not reason. His quiet rebellion, like Mei Ling's sketches, Liang's kindness, Anyi's poetry, Wei's pebble, and Shufin's care, is the spark in the dark. The palace is a place of knowledge, its scrolls a treasure, but it's also a place of fear, where every rule tests the mind. As we follow Jian, we'll see how his path crosses with the others, how the rules shape his choices, and how his story weaves into the palace's intricate tale. Let's stay with him, dear listener, through this timeless journey. The rule of secrecy reveals the insanity of the Forbidden City's laws, turning trust into a crime, silence into a weapon. Mei Ling's fear, Liang's lie, Anyi's scheme, Wei's silence, Shufin's protection. Jian's essays, these are the costs of a system that guards its heart at the expense of its people. The palace is a place of beauty, its winter halls aglow, but it's also a place of isolation, where every rule builds a wall. As we follow our characters, we'll see how this rule tests their bonds, how it shapes their choices, and how their stories weave into the palace's intricate tale. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this timeless journey. The Forbidden City's air is thick with the hush of winter. Dear listener, as the scent of burning braziers and frozen earth wraps the courtyards in a quiet embrace. The palace moves with its unyielding rhythm. The rule of secrecy now, a heavy veil over Mei Ling, Liang, and Yewei Shufan and Jian. The edict's demand for loyalty and the weight of hidden truths have tested their resilience, each navigating the laws of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, loyalty, and secrecy. Now, we turn to a moment of adaptation, a story of how these characters find new ways to endure the palace's insane rules. From Mei Ling's quiet rituals to Jian's hidden words, their strategies weave a fragile web of survival, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to break. Let's step into this world of quiet defiance where the rules are iron but the heart is flame, and see how they hold fast. Mei Ling adapts by creating small anchors in her daily life. The rule of secrecy keeps her from sharing the noble's talk she overheard, but she finds solace in routine. Each morning before dawn she braids her hair in a pattern her mother taught her, a silent link to home that defies the rule of invisibility. In the servants' quarters, she hums a melody so softly it blends with her breath, a rebellion against the rule of silence. These rituals ground her, keeping her spirit alive. During a task in the emperor's study, she arranges scrolls with care, the rule of ritual purity her guide. But she slips a tiny pebble found in a courtyard into her sleeve, a secret defiance of the rule of restricted movement. Mei Ling's adaptations are small, but they're vital, a way to endure the palace's relentless pressure. She thinks of Shufen's care, weighs silence, and feels a quiet strength. Knowing others share her fight, Liang adapts through subtle alliances. The rule of secrecy isolates him, but he builds trust in small ways. He shares a glance with Wei during a patrol, a nod to Jian in the scholars' quarters, a pause to let Mei Ling pass safely. These acts defy the rule of loyalty, which demands his heart belong to the emperor alone. In the hall of mental cultivation, preparing ritual items, he notices a servant's mistake, a smudged censer, and corrects it himself, sparing her punishment. The rule of ritual purity demands perfection, but Liang's kindness bends it, a rebellion against the rule of absolute obedience. His lie during the edict, hiding Ani's poetry, was an adaptation, a choice to protect rather than betray. Liang's connections, fragile as they are his lifeline, a way to navigate a world that seeks to divide, and he adapts by turning the rules into tools. The rule of secrecy shields her poetry, her ambition a fire that burns beneath her poised exterior. She uses the rule of ritual purity to her advantage, her flawless robes and gestures winning favor during ceremonies. The rule of restricted movement confines her, but she sends messages through trusted maids, her words veiled to avoid the rule of silence. After the edict, she crafts a new poem, praising the emperor's mercy, and ensures it reaches his advisors, a defiance of the rule of absolute obedience. Ani's adaptations are bold, her ambition a dance with danger. She sees Mei Ling's careful steps, Jian's thoughtful gaze, and senses their shared struggle. Though the rules keep them apart, her poetry, hidden but alive, is her way to endure, a spark in the palace's cold embrace. Wei adapts through memory. The rule of secrecy binds his tongue, but his pebble, carried for decades, is a secret link to his village. He rubs it during patrols, a defiance of the rule of loyalty that demands he forget his past. The rule of invisibility keeps him unnoticed, but he bends it by sparing a servant's mistake, his silence a gift. During the edict, his choice to protect Mei Ling was an adaptation, a rebellion against the rule of absolute obedience. Wei's duty is his anchor, but his compassion is his strength, a way to endure the palace's relentless laws. Shufan adapts through leadership. The rule of secrecy isolates her, but she shares quiet stories with her girls, defying the rule of silence to build trust. Her lies during the edict, protecting Mei Ling, were an adaptation, a breach of the rule of loyalty for a higher cause. Jian adapts through knowledge. His essays, hidden beneath his bed, defy the rule of secrecy. His words a rebellion against the rule of loyalty. He shares a scroll with a struggling scholar, a small act that bends the rules. These adaptations, Mei Ling's rituals, Liang's alliances, Ani's ambition, Wei's memory, Shufen's leadership, Jian's knowledge are the heart of their survival. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane, demanding control over every thought, but these characters find ways to resist, to endure. The palace is a place of beauty, its winter halls aglow, but it's also a place of struggle, where every rule tests the soul. As we follow them, we'll see how their adaptations shape their paths, how the rules weave their stories, and how their resilience lights the dark. Let's stay with them, dear listener. Through this intricate journey, the Forbidden City's air is soft with the promise of spring. Dear listener, as the scent of plum blossoms and warm earth drifts through the courtyards, the crimson walls catching the first light, the palace moves with its eternal rhythm, the rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, loyalty, and secrecy binding Mei Ling, Liang, Anye Wei, Shufen, and Jian. Their adaptations, rituals, alliances, ambition, memory, leadership, knowledge have kept them afloat, but the edict's shadow and the weight of secrets linger. Now, a new climax emerges, a moment that tests the palace's fragile order. A forbidden meeting, a secret gathering of our characters, defies every rule, risking everything for a moment of connection. For Mei Ling, it's a leap of courage. For Liang, a final stand. For Anye, a gamble for trust. For Wei, a break from duty. For Shufan, a mother's choice. For Jian, a spark of hope. Let's step into this dangerous night, where the rules of the Forbidden City burn bright, and see how they face this reckoning. The meeting happens in a hidden courtyard tucked behind the imperial gardens, where willows drape like curtains. The air is cool, the scent of moss and lantern oil heavy in the dark. Shufan orchestrates it, her authority bending the rule of restricted movement. She's seen the strain in Mei Ling's eyes, Liang's guarded glances, Anyi's poised tension, Wei's quiet resolve, Jian's restless mind. The rule of secrecy demands silence, but Shufan believes connection is their salvation. She whispers to each, guiding them to the courtyard after midnight, when the palace sleeps. Mei Ling arrives first, her heart pounding, the rule of invisibility screaming in her mind. She clutches her pebble, a secret she's carried since the emperor's study, and wonders if this meeting will save or destroy her. The rule of silence. He keeps her voice locked, but her presence is a defiance, a step toward trust. Liang follows, his blue robe blending with the shadows. The rule of loyalty binds him to the emperor, but his lie during the edict, his kindness to Mei Ling have shifted his heart. He sees Shufan's signal lanterns flicker and steps into the courtyard, breaking the rule of restricted movement. The rule of secrecy weighs heavy. He knows Anya's poetry, Kayan's essays, and fears betrayal. But Liang's alliances, his small acts of care, pull him forward. Anye arrives, her crimson robe hidden beneath a plain cloak, the rule of ritual purity irrelevant in this stolen moment. Her ambition has driven her, but the rule of silence isolates her. She sees Mei Ling's trembling hands, Liang's wary eyes, and feels a spark of connection, a defiance of the rule of loyalty. Her poetry, hidden but alive, urges her to trust. A gamble she's never taken. Wei steps into the courtyard, whose spear left behind, the rule of absolute obedience broken by his presence. The pebble in his pocket, a secret for decades, is his anchor. The rule of invisibility demands he stay unseen, but Wei's compassion for Mei Ling for Liang draws him here. He sees Shufan's steady gaze, Jian's thoughtful face, and feels their shared struggle, a bond the rule of secrecy can't break. Shufan stands at the center, her gray robe a quiet authority. The rule of loyalty demands she report this meeting, but her heart lies with her charges. She speaks softly, defying the rule of silence. Her words a call for unity. Jian arrives last, his scrolls left behind, the rule of secrecy a weight he's carried too long. His essays, his plea for mercy, are rebellions against the rules, and this meeting is his hope for change. He sees Anye's poise, Wei's resolve, and feels their shared fight. The Forbidden City's courtyards are cloaked in winter's silence. Dear listener, as the air carries the scent of snow and distant charcoal fires, the golden roofs dusted with white, the edict's shadow lingers, its demand for loyalty tightening. The rules that bind Mei Ling, Liang, Anye, Wei, Shufan, and now Jian, the laws of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, and loyalty have tested them, each finding ways to endure. Now, we explore how these rules ripple outward, their impact on the palace's society a mirror to the struggles within. This is a story of a community shaped by control, where every rule creates both order and fracture. From Mei Ling's quiet defiance to Jian's hidden essays, their actions reveal the tension between the Forbidden City's harmony and its human cost. Let's step into this broader view, where the palace's walls hold 1,000 stories, and see how the rules define its soul. The Forbidden City was a microcosm of the empire, its society a delicate balance of hierarchy and ritual. The rules were designed to maintain this balance, ensuring the emperor's divine mandate. The rule of silence kept secrets within the walls, preventing unrest from spreading to Beijing's markets or beyond. The rule of invisibility crafted an illusion of effortless order, the emperor's world free of mundane labor. The rule of restricted movement controlled access, protecting the palace from threats. The rule of absolute obedience ensured every soul served the emperor's will, while the rule of ritual purity aligned the palace with the heavens. The rule of loyalty bound them all, a vow that placed the emperor above family, friend, or self. Together, these laws created a society of stunning precision, ceremonies flawless, halls gleaming, gardens pristine. But this precision came at a cost, one felt by every servant, eunuch, concubine, guard, and scholar. Bai Ling's life reflects this cost. Her sketches, her silent melodies, are acts of resistance against a society that demands she vanish. The rule of silence isolates her, cutting her from the community she craves. Yet, she notices other Shufan's care, Liang's kindness, Wei's silence, and feels a quiet bond. The edict forced her to stand before the court, her fear a shared experience with countless servants who trembled beside her. Liang, as a eunuch, navigates a society where power is precarious. His role enforces the rules, but his small act sparing Mei Ling hiding Annie's poetry defy the isolation the rules impose. The edict tested his loyalty, but his choice to lie forged a connection with those who share his struggle. A community hidden beneath the palace's surface. Annie's ambition thrives in this society, but the rules cage her. Her poetry, her calculated gestures, are bids for influence in a world where concubines compete for scraps of favor. The rule of restricted movement keeps her from the courtyards where power shifts, but her public poem during the edict won allies among the nobles. She sees Mei Ling's careful steps, Gion's thoughtful gaze, and senses a shared fight, though the rule of silence prevents connection. Wei's duty as a guard upholds the society's order, but his pebble, his small rebellions, show a longing for the community he left behind. The edict's scrutiny made him question his role, yet his silence protected others, a quiet thread in the palace's fabric. Shu Fen, as a senior servant, bridges the society, her authority a shield for girls like Mei Ling. Her lies during the edict, her whispered stories, defy the rules to build a fragile community among the servants. Jian's scholarship serves the society's need for knowledge, but his essays, hidden from the emperor's eyes, challenge its control. The rule of loyalty demands he write only for the emperor, but his plea for mercy in the edict was a rebellion, a hope for a society less cruel. He sees Liang's guarded eyes, Annie's poised grace, and feels their shared tension, a community bound by the rule's pressure. The Forbidden City's society was a marvel, its rituals a dance, its hierarchy a pyramid, but it was also a prison, where every rule fractured the human need for connection. The edict revealed this fracture, forcing each soul to choose between loyalty to the emperor and loyalty to each other. Ma Ling, Liang, Anye Wei, Shu Fen, and Jian chose the latter, their small acts weaving a hidden community. Within the palace's walls, the rules were insane because they demanded order at the expense of humanity, control over hearts that sought to connect. The Forbidden City's society stood for centuries, a testament to its rules, but its true strength lay in the resilience of its people. Their stories, Mei Ling's sketches, Liang's kindness, Annie's poetry, Wei's pebble, Shu Fen's care, Gian's essays show a community that survived despite the rules. As we follow them, we'll see how this society shapes their fates, how the rules test their bonds, and how their stories unfold in this intricate world. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this timeless tale. The Forbidden Cities. Air is sharp with winter's bite, dear listener. As the scent of snow and distant incense wraps the courtyards in a quiet chill, the palace moves with its relentless order. The edict's demand for loyalty now a fading echo, though its lessons linger in the hearts of Mei Ling, Liang, Anye Wei, Shu Fen, and Jian. The rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, and loyalty have shaped their lives. Their small rebellions a testament to their resilience. Now, a new conflict emerges, one that tests the fragile bonds they've formed. The rule of secrecy, a law forbidding the sharing of the palace's inner workings, becomes a wall between them. For Mei Ling, it's a barrier to trust. For Liang, a risk of betrayal. For Anye, a shield for ambition. For Wei, a weight of silence. For Shu Fen, a test of leadership. For Jian, a clash of truth. Let's step into this tense moment, where the rules of the Forbidden City guard its secrets, and see how our characters navigate this shadow. The rule of secrecy was vital to the Forbidden City's survival. The palace was a fortress of power, its decisions shaping an empire. A leaked word, a noble's plot, a concubine's scheme. An emperor's doubt could spark rebellion or weaken the mandate of heaven. Servants, eunuchs, concubines, guards, and scholars were forbidden to speak of what they saw or heard, under pain of death. This rule reinforced the others, making silence and invisibility not just duties but necessities. Mei Ling feels its weight, daily. She's overheard secrets the nobles talk of rebellion, Annie's whispered poem, but the rule of secrecy keeps her lips sealed. One morning, she's cleaning the emperor's study, the air heavy with the scent of lacquered wood. A scroll, left open, hints at a planned military campaign. The rule of secrecy demands she ignore it, but the knowledge burns. A secret she can't share with Shu Fen or Liang. She works quickly, her hands trembling, fearing the eunuch's watchful eyes. Liang, in the emperor's inner court, lives with secrets as a eunuch. He knows Annie's poetry, Gian's subtle plea in the edict, Mei Ling's hidden sketch. The rule of secrecy binds him, but his heart pulls toward trust. One evening, in the hall of mental cultivation, he's tasked with sealing a decree. The air is thick with wax, the silence oppressive. A fellow eunuch, sensing his unease, asks if he's heard of the rumor's source. Liang hesitates, his loyalty to the emperor clashing with his bond to the others. He denies knowing, a lie that breaks the rule of absolute obedience, risking his life. The rule of secrecy isolates him, making every connection a danger. He thinks of Mei Ling's fear, Wei's pebble, and wonders if trust is worth the cost. Liang seals the decree, his face blank, but his heart aches for a world where secrets don't divide. Anye uses the rule of secrecy to her advantage. Her poetry, hidden beneath her chamber's floor, is a secret that fuels her ambition. The edict's Scrutiny has passed, but ladies' use whispers persist. Anye crafts a new strategy. She shares a false secret with a maid, implying ladies' use disloyalty, knowing it will reach the eunuchs. The rule of secrecy protects her, as no one can trace the whisper back. In her chambers, the air warm with the scent of rosewater, she prepares for a ritual, her crimson robe flawless under the rule of ritual purity. The rule of restricted movement keeps her from the courtyards where secrets spread, but her calculated leak is a weapon. Ani's heart races as she waits, knowing the palace's rules can both shield and betray her. Wei, patrolling the gates, carries secrets like stones. He's seen Mei Ling's pale face, Jian's thoughtful gaze, Shu Fen's quiet care. The rule of secrecy demands he keep them to himself, but his pebble reminds him of a village where trust was shared. During a patrol, he overhears two guards discussing the edict's fallout, their words hinting at a noble's plot. The rule of loyalty demands he report it, but Wei hesitates, his silence a defiance of the rules. Shu Fen, overseeing the servants, knows the palace's secret. Senyi's poetry, Guyan's essays, Mei Ling's sketch. The rule of secrecy binds her, but her role as protector pulls her toward trust. When a eunuch questions her about a servant's behavior, she deflects, her voice steady, shielding Mei Ling. Jian, in the scholar's quarters, writes truths he can't share. His essays a secret rebellion against the rule of secrecy. He sees Liang's guarded eyes, Ani's poised grace, and feels their shared burden. They stand together, a circle of 6, their breaths visible in the cold. Shu Fin speaks of the palace's cruelty, the rules that divide them, and urges them to share one truth. Mei Ling admits her pebble, a defiance of the rules. Liang confesses his lie, Anye her poetry, Wei his pebble, Shu Fin her stories, Jian his essays. The rules of silence, secrecy, and loyalty crumble in this moment. Their truths a fragile bridge, but a shadow moves a eunuch, patrolling nearby. They scatter, hearts racing, the meeting a spark that could ignite or burn out. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane, demanding control over souls that seek connection. This meeting, brief but powerful, is a climax, a defiance that binds them. The palace is a place of beauty, its gardens blooming, but it's also a place of risk where every rule tests the heart. As we follow them, we'll see how this moment shapes their fates, how the rules weave their stories, and how their courage lights the dark. Let's stay with them, dear listener. Through this intricate tale, the Forbidden City's air is soft with the dawn of spring. Dear listener, as the scent of cherry blossoms and warm stone fills the courtyards, the palace waking to its relentless rhythm, the forbidden meeting, a fleeting moment of defiance, has left Mei Ling, Liang, and Ye Wei, Shu Fen, and Jian changed. Their shared truths a fragile bond against the rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, loyalty, and secrecy. The eunuch's shadow lingers, a reminder of the risk they took, but their courage burns bright. Now, we explore how they carry this moment forward, how their resilience shapes their lives in the face of the palace's insane laws. From Mei Ling, quiet strength to Guyan's bold words, their adaptations evolve, weaving a tapestry of hope in a world of control. Let's step into this new chapter, where the rules are unyielding but the heart is steadfast, and see how they endure. Mei Ling carries the meeting like a secret flame. The rule of secrecy binds her, but the memory of Shu Fan's words, Liang's confession, gives her strength. She continues her rituals, braiding her hair, humming softly, but now she adds a new act. She leaves a tiny pebble in the courtyard, a sign for the others, defying the rule of invisibility. During a task in the emperor's study, arranging scrolls under the rule of ritual purity, she feels bolder, her hand steady. The rule of silence keeps her voice locked, but she meets Liang's eyes in passing, a silent vow. The meeting has taught her that connection is possible, even in this cage. Mei Ling's resilience grows, her fear tempered by the knowledge that she's not alone. She thinks of Ani's poetry, Wei's pebble, and feels their shared defiance, a quiet power that defies the rule of loyalty. Liang's resilience deepens through trust. The rule of absolute obedience demands he report the meeting, but his heart lies with the circle. He continues his small kindnesses, sparing his servants. Mistake, nodding to Wei, but now he seeks them out. His alliance is stronger. In the hall of mental cultivation, preparing ritual items, he slips a note to Jian, a simple word of thanks, defying the rule of secrecy. The rule of ritual purity guides his work, but his thoughts are with Mei Ling's pebble, Shu Fan's care. The meeting has shifted his loyalty, not from the emperor but toward a higher truth, compassion. Liang's lie during the edict, his silence about Ani's poetry, were steps toward this, but the meeting is a leap, a defiance that strengthens his resolve. He moves through the palace, his robe pristine, but his heart is alive, a spark against the rules. Ani's resilience is fueled by hope. The rule of restricted movement confines her, but the meeting's truths, Jian's essays, Mei Ling's pebble inspire her. She continues her poetry, her words bolder, hidden beneath her chamber's floor. During a ritual, presenting a jade offering under the rule of ritual purity, She catches the emperor's eye, her grace a defiance of the rule of silence. Anya uses the rule of secrecy to protect her allies, spreading a false whisper to shield Shufen from suspicion. The meeting has taught her that ambition need not be solitary. Her poetry now speaks of unity, a rebellion against the rule of loyalty. Annie's heart races as she writes, the silk curtains swaying, but the memory of the courtyard keeps her steady. A light in the palace's shadow, Wei's resilience grows through connection. The rule of invisibility demands he fade, but the meeting's truth, Sufen's leadership, Jian's hope anchor him. He continues his patrols, his pebble warm in his pocket, but now he pauses to nod to Mei Ling, a defiance of the rule of silence. During a ceremony, guarding the altar, he sees Liang's careful steps and feels their shared bond, a rebellion against the rule of loyalty. The rule of absolute obedience binds him, but Wei's compassion, honed over decades, is his strength. The meeting has reminded him that duty can include humanity, a lesson he carries in every step. Shufen's resilience is rooted in protection. The rule of secrecy isolates her, but she continues her stories, her lies, shielding Mei Ling and the others. The meeting has strengthened her resolve, her leadership a defiance of the rule of absolute obedience. Jayan's resilience is sparked by truth. The rule of secrecy hides his essays, but the meeting's confessions and Yi's poetry, Wei's pep, his courage. He writes a new essay, calling for reform, and shares it with a trusted scholar, defying the rule of loyalty. During a task, drafting a decree under the rule of ritual purity, he slips in a subtle call for mercy, a rebellion against the rule of absolute obedience. The meeting has shown him that change is possible, even in this rigid world. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane, demanding control over hearts that seek freedom, but Mei Ling, Liang, Anye, Weishu, and Jian prove that resilience can thrive. The palace is a place of beauty, its spring gardens blooming, but it's also a place of defiance, where every rule sparks a fight. As we follow them, we'll see how their resilience shapes their fates, how the rules weave their stories, and how their courage endures. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this intricate tale. The Forbidden City's air is warm with the breath of spring. Dear listener, as the scent of peonies and sun-warmed stone fills the courtyards, the palace moving with its timeless grace, the forbidden meeting has bound Mei Ling, Liang, Wei Shufen, and Jian, their shared defiance, a quiet revolution against the rules of silence. Invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, loyalty, and secrecy. Their resilience, Mei Ling's pebbles, Liang's alliances, Ani's poetry, Wei's compassion, Shufen's leadership, Jian's essays has carried them through the edict's shadow and the palace's relentless laws. Now, a new conflict rises, one that tests their newfound unity. The rule of punishment, a law enforcing swift justice for any breach, threatens to shatter their circle. For Mei Ling, it's a brush with danger. For Liang, a moment of sacrifice. For Anye, a test of loyalty. For Wei, a clash of duty. For Shufen, a desperate act. For Jian, a call to action. Let's step into this perilous moment, where the rules of the Forbidden City demand retribution, and see how they face this storm. The rule of punishment was the palace's iron hand. Breaches of any rule, silence, invisibility, loyalty were met with swift, often brutal consequences. Servants could be flogged for gossip, eunuchs exiled for disobedience, concubines banished for ambition, guards executed for neglect. The rule was rooted in the belief that order was divine, and any flaw threatened the emperor's mandate. Mei Ling feels this rule's shadow daily. One morning, while cleaning the emperor's study, she drops a jade seal, a breach of the rule of ritual purity. The air is heavy with the scent of ink, the silence deafening. A eunuch, not Liang, sees the mistake and reports it. The rule of punishment demands a flogging, and Mei Ling is summoned to the courtyard, her heart racing. She clutches her pebble, the meeting's memory, her only strength. Shufen, present as overseer, pleads for leniency, defying the rule of absolute obedience. But the head eunuch is unmoved. Mei Ling braces for the lash, her fear tempered by the thought of her circle's bond. Liang, in the inner court, hears of Mei Ling's punishment and acts. The rule of secrecy demands he stay silent, but his loyalty lies with the meeting's truths. He approaches the head eunuch, claiming the seal was faulty, a lie that risks his own punishment. The air in the hall is thick with wax, the lanterns casting long shadows. The rule of absolute obedience binds him, but Liang's the rule of loyalty spares Mei Ling the worst. He receives a lashing instead, his back burning, but his heart is steady. The meeting's unity, his anchor. Anye in her chambers learns of the incident through a maid. The rule of punishment threatens her own secrets, her poetry, her schemes. She writes a poem praising the emperor's mercy, ensuring it reaches him, a calculated act to shift focus from Mei Ling's fault. The rule of restricted movement confines her, but her words, veiled under the rule of silence, are a defiance, a loyalty to the circle over the palace. Wei, patrolling the courtyard, witnesses Liang's punishment, his spear heavy in his hand. The rule of punishment demands he uphold order, but his pebble, warm in his pocket, reminds him of the meeting's truths. He looks away, defying the rule of absolute obedience. his silence a rebellion. The rule of invisibility keeps him unnoticed, but his heart aches for Liang, for Mei Ling, for the circle's fragile bond. Shufan, overseeing the servants, risks everything to protect them. She lies to the head eunuch, claiming Mei's mistake was her oversight, a breach of the rule of loyalty that earns her a reprimand. The air is cold, the courtyard silent, but Shufan's axe strengthens the circle, her leadership a shield. Jian, in the scholars' quarters, hears of the punishment and writes an essay, hidden beneath his bed, calling for reform. The rule of punishment demands he accepts justice, but his words, defying the rule of secrecy, are a call to change, inspired by the meeting's courage. The rule of punishment reveals the insanity of the Forbidden City's laws, demanding pain for human flaws. With control over hearts that seek connection, Mei Ling's fear, Liang's sacrifice, Anyi's poem, Wei's silence, Shufan's lie. Jian's essay. These are the costs of a system that punishes defiance. The palace is a place of beauty, its spring gardens blooming, but it's also a place of cruelty, where every rule scars the soul. The meeting's bond holds them together, their resilience a light in the dark. As we follow them, we'll see how this punishment shapes their paths, how the rules test their unity, and how their stories weave into the palace's intricate tale. Let's stay with them, dear listener, through this timeless journey. The Forbidden City's air is warm with the glow of summer, dear listener, as the scent of lotus blooms and sun-baked stone fills the courtyards, the palace moving with its unyielding rhythm. The rule of punishment has left its mark on Mei Ling, Liang and Ye, Wei, Shufan and Jian. Their circles bond tested but unbroken by Liang's sacrifice and Shufan's protection. The rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, loyalty, secrecy, and punishment bind them. Yet their resilience, Mei Ling's pebbles, Liang's alliances, Anyi's poetry, Wei's compassion, Shufan's leadership, Jian's essays shines through. Now we explore how these rules connect to our world, how the struggles of the Forbidden City echo in the challenges we face today. From Mei Ling's quiet courage to Jian's bold words, their stories remind us that the past is a mirror, reflecting our own fights for freedom and connection. Let's step into this reflection, where the palace's walls fade and its lessons live, linking their time to ours. Mei Ling's battle with the rule of silence resonates in our lives, where fear of judgment or consequence often mutes our voices. Her pebbles, her soft humming, were acts of defiance, small ways to reclaim her identity. Today, we see this in those who speak out despite risks, the whistleblower exposing truth, the artist sharing their story, the friend who challenges a wrong. Mei Ling's resilience teaches us that even in oppressive systems, we can find ways to be heard, to hold on to ourselves. The rule of punishment, which nearly broke her, mirrors the harsh consequences we face for stepping out of line, whether in workplaces or societies. Her survival, bolstered by the circle's bond, reminds us that community can be a shield, a lesson we carry when we face our own silences and fears. Liang's sacrifice, defying the rule of loyalty to save Mei Ling, echoes in those who risk their place for others. His alliances, his quiet kindness, were rebellions against a system that demanded isolation. We see this in the colleague who defends a peer, the activist who stands for justice, the stranger who offers help. Liang's story shows that loyalty can extend beyond rigid structures, that compassion can defy control. The rule of secrecy, which isolated him, mirrors the pressures we face to keep quiet: corporate secrets, social norms, personal fears. Liang's choice to trust the circle, to share their truths, is a call to build connections, a light for us when we navigate our own divided worlds. Anyi's poetry, a rebellion against the rule of restricted movement, speaks to our need for expression in confined spaces. Her ambition, her calculated risks, reflect the ways we navigate competitive systems, careers, communities, dreams while protecting our true selves. Today, we see this in the writer crafting stories in secret, the dreamer planning beyond their limits, the leader who bends rules for good. Anyi's resilience, strengthened by the meeting, shows that creativity can transcend boundaries, a lesson we carry in our own pursuits of freedom. The rule of absolute obedience, which caged her, mirrors the expectations we face to conform, and her poetry is a reminder that defiance, even hidden, can spark change. Wei's compassion, defying the rule of invisibility, connects to the quiet acts of kindness we offer in rigid roles. His pebble, his silence during the punishment, were rebellions against a system that demanded detachment. We see this in the teacher who listens, the worker who helps unseen, the neighbor who cares. Wei's story teaches us that duty can include humanity, that small acts can build community. The rule of ritual purity, which bound him, mirrors the perfection we're often expected to achieve, and his resilience shows that flaws can be strengths. Shufan's leadership, defying the rule of punishment to protect Mei Ling, reflects those who guide others through hardship: parents, mentors, friends. Her stories, her lies, were a rebellion against isolation, a lesson in the power of care. Jian's essays, hidden against the rule of secrecy, echo the truths we seek in a world of control. His call for reform, inspired by the meeting, reflects those who challenge systems, scholars, activists, dreamers. The rule of loyalty, which demanded his silence, mirrors the pressures we face to align with power, and Jian's words show that truth can be a rebellion. The Forbidden City's rules were insane, demanding perfection from imperfect hearts. But Mei Ling, Liang, Anya, Wei, Shufen, and Jian proved that resilience, connection, and defiance can endure. Their stories connect to ours, showing that the fight for freedom, for community, is timeless. The palace, with its summer glow, was a world of control, but it was also a world of hope, where every rule sparked a fight. Let's carry their lessons, dear listener, through this timeless journey. The Forbidden City's air is crisp with the edge of autumn, dear listener. As the scent of fallen leaves and burning cedar weaves through the courtyards, the palace glowing under a harvest moon, the rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, loyalty, secrecy, and punishment have tested Mei Ling, Liang, Yang, Wei, Shufen, and Jian. Their forbidden meeting a spark of defiance that binds them. The punishment of Liang spared by Lai has strengthened their circle, their resilience a light against the palace's relentless laws. Now, we reach a moment of resolution, a quiet turning point where their adaptations, Mei Ling's pebbles, Liang's alliances, Ani's poetry, Wei's compassion, Shufen's leadership, Jian's essays begin to shift the palace's shadows. A small act of unity, a shared defiance, ripples through their lives, offering hope in a world of control. Let's step into this gentle dawn, where the rules are iron but the heart is fire, and see how they find peace. Mei Ling carries the meeting's echo in every task. The rule of secrecy binds her, but she leaves another pebble in the courtyard, a signal to the circle, defying the rule of invisibility. One morning, cleaning the emperor's study, she finds a scroll left open, its words praising mercy, a subtle echo of Jian's essays. The rule of secrecy demands she ignore it, but she shares a glance with Shufen, a silent acknowledgement. The rule of punishment looms, but Mei Ling's courage grows, her pebbles a ritual that keeps her grounded. She thinks of Liang's sacrifice, Ani's poetry, and feels their bond, a defiance of the rule of loyalty. In the servants' quarters, she hums softly, her melody blending with the dawn, a quiet rebellion that strengthens her resolve. Mei Ling's small acts, once solitary, now connect her to the circle, a hope that the rules can't extinguish. Liang carries the meeting's truth like a shield. The rule of absolute obedience demands he serve the emperor, but his heart lies with the circle. His back still aches from the lashing, but his alliance's nods two-way, glances to Jiang grow bolder. In the hall of mental cultivation, preparing ritual items under the rule of ritual purity, he slips a note to Mei Ling, a simple word of hope, defying the rule of secrecy. The rule of loyalty binds him, but Liang's kindness, his sacrifice for Mei Ling, has shifted his purpose. He sees Ani's poised grace during a ceremony, Wei's steady gaze, and feels their shared strength. A rebellion against the rule of punishment. Liang's resilience, forged in the meeting, is a quiet revolution, a belief that connection can outlast control. Ani's poetry, hidden beneath her chamber's floor, is her anchor. The rule of restricted movement confines her, but the meeting's truths, Jian's essays, Wei's compassion fueled her hope. During a ritual, presenting a jade lotus under the rule of ritual purity, she catches the emperor's eye. Her words a subtle plea for unity inspired by the circle. The rule of silence keeps her voice low, but her poetry, shared with a trusted maid, reaches Jian, a defiance of the rule of secrecy. Ani's ambition, once solitary, now carries the circle's spirit, her poems a bridge to their shared fight. She thinks of Mei Ling's pebble, Shufen's care, and feels their bond, a rebellion against the rule of loyalty. Her heart races as she writes, the silk curtains swaying. But the meeting's memory steadies her, a light in the palace's shadow. Wei's compassion, tempered by the meeting, grows stronger. The rule of invisibility demands he fade, but he pauses to nod to Mei Ling during a patrol, a defiance of the rule of silence. His pebble, warm in his pocket, is a secret link to his village, a rebellion against the rule of loyalty. During a ceremony, guarding the altar, he sees Liang's careful steps and feels their shared bond, a defiance of the rule of punishment. Wei's duty, once rigid, now bends with humanity. The meeting's truths his guide. Shufen's leadership, strengthened by the circle, defies the rule of absolute obedience. She shares a story with her girls, a tale of hope, breaking the rule of silence. Her lie during Liang's punishment, her protection of Mei Ling binds her to the circle, a rebellion against the rule of secrecy. Jian's essays, hidden but bold, carry the meeting spirit. The rule of secrecy binds him, but he shares a scroll with Anyi, a call for reform inspired by her poetry. During a task, drafting a decree under the rule of ritual purity, he slips in a word of mercy, a defiance of the rule of loyalty. The meeting has shown him that change is possible. His essay is a spark against the palace's control. The rules of the Forbidden City are insane, demanding control over hearts that seek freedom. But the circle's unity, Meiling's pebbles, Liang's alliances, Ani's poetry, Wei's compassion, Shufen's leadership, Jian's essays, a quiet victory. The palace is a place of beauty, its autumn halls aglow, but it's also a place of hope, where every rule sparks a fight. As we follow them, we'll see how this resolution shapes their paths, how their stories weave into the palace's intricate tale. Let's stay with them, dear listener, for one final chapter. The Forbidden City's air is soft with the glow of autumn's end, dear listener, as the scent of chrysanthemums and fading embers wraps the courtyards in a gentle hush. The palace moves with its eternal rhythm, its golden roofs catching the last light. But for Meiling, Liang, Anye, Wei, Shufen, and Jian, the rules of silence, invisibility, restricted movement, absolute obedience, ritual purity, loyalty, secrecy, and punishment have lost some of their weight. Their forbidden meeting, their shared truths, and their quiet resilience have woven a bond that defies the palace's control. This is our final chapter, a moment to reflect on their journey, to see how their defiance shaped their lives and left a legacy that echoes beyond the crimson walls. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, dear listener, and let's carry this story with us, a tale of human hearts in a world of iron rules. Let's step into this serene farewell, where the past whispers its lessons, and see how their stories endure. Meiling, once a frightened girl, has grown stronger, her pebbles a quiet rebellion against the rule of invisibility. She still cleans the emperor's study, her hands steady now, the air warm with the scent of ink and polished wood. The rule of silence binds her, but her soft humming, shared with the circle, is a victory. She leaves a final pebble in the courtyard, a gift for Shufen, a defiance of the rule of secrecy. The punishment she faced, spared by Liang's sacrifice, taught her that connection is stronger than fear. Meiling dreams of her village, her sister's laughter. But the circle, Liang's kindness, Ani's poetry gives her hope. She moves through the palace, her steps light, her heart carrying the meeting's truth, a spark that the rules can't extinguish. Liang, his back scarred but his spirit unbroken, finds peace in his alliances. The rule of loyalty demanded his heart, but his lie for Meiling, his note of hope, defied it. In the hall of mental cultivation, preparing ritual items under the rule of ritual purity, he nods to Jian, a silent bond that breaks the rule of silence. The rule of punishment tested him, but the circle's unity, Wei's compassion, Shufen's care strengthened him. Liang's kindness, once a risk, is now his purpose, a rebellion against the palace's isolation. He thinks of Ani's poetry, Meiling's pebble, and feels their shared fight, a legacy that outlasts the rules. Ani's poetry, once hidden, now carries the circle's spirit. The rule of restricted movement confines her, but her words, shared with Jian, defy the rule of secrecy. During a final ritual, presenting a silk banner under the rule of ritual purity, she catches the emperor's eye, her grace a quiet triumph. The rule of absolute obedience demanded her submission, but her poetry, inspired by the meeting, speaks of freedom. Ani's ambition, tempered by the circle's bond, is no longer solitary. She thinks of Meiling's courage, Wei's pebble, and feels their shared defiance, a light that the rules can't dim. Her heart, once caged, now soars. Her poems, a legacy of hope. Wei's compassion, honed by decades, shines through the rules. His pebble, a secret defiance of the rule of loyalty, anchors him. During a patrol, he pauses to nod to Meiling, breaking the rule of invisibility. The rule of punishment, which scarred Liang, taught Wei that duty can include humanity. The circle's truths, Futsfen's leadership, Jian's essays give him strength. He stands at the gate of heavenly purity, his spear steady, but his heart is with the circle, a bond that defies the rule of silence. Wei's quiet rebellion, his compassion, is his legacy, a reminder that the rules can't erase the heart. Shufen's leadership, her stories, her lies, have protected the circle. The rule of secrecy isolated her, but her care for Meiling, her guidance of Liang, defied it. In the servants' quarters, she shares a final tale, breaking the rule of silence, her voice a gift. The rule of punishment tested her, but her protection of the circle, her defiance of the rule of absolute obedience, is her triumph. Jian's essays, inspired by the circle, call for a kinder world. The rule of loyalty bound him, but his words, shared with Anye, defy it. His final scroll, hidden but bold, is a legacy of hope, a rebellion against the rule of secrecy. The Forbidden City's rules were insane, demanding perfection from imperfect souls, but Meiling, Liang, Anye, Wei, Shufen, and Jian proved that resilience, connection, and defiance can endure. Their stories, pebbles, alliances, poetry, compassion, leadership, essays are a testament to the human spirit. The palace, with its autumn glow, was a world of control, but it was also a world of hope, where every rule sparked a fight. Today, their lessons whisper to us, in our own struggles, our own rules, we can find strength, build bonds, and defy control. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, dear listener, and let the Forbidden City's echo fade, its truths lingering like a melody. Rest now, knowing their courage lives on, a light to guide us through our own journeys.